Thank you very much. Reading tonight's land acknowledgement by Councilmember Brenda Fentley Johnson.
Land acknowledgement statement. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. That is from Chief Seattle, 1854. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is within the ancestral territory of the Squab people of clear salt water, the Suquamish people. Expert fishermen, canoe builders, and basket weavers, the Squabs live in harmony with the lands and waterways along Washington's Central Salish Sea, as they have for thousands of years. Here the Squabs live and protect the land and waters of their ancestors for future generations as promised by the Point Elliott Treaty of 1855. Suquamish Tribe.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Fentley Johnson. Council, we are on item number 2, approve of the agenda. Would welcome a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Moved by Councilmember Fentley Johnson.
Second.
Is there a second? Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Noted that Councilmember Ashley Matthews online says aye. That's 6-0, and the chair votes aye, 7-0. Same on item number 2, is there any conflict of interest to be discussed or disclosed today? Seeing none, let's move on to item number 3, presentation A, proclamation declaring August 2026 as National Emergency Management Awareness Month, and it will be presented by Councilmember Scheidler.
Thank you, Mayor. A proclamation by the City Council of the City of Bainbridge Island, Washington, declaring August 2026 as National Emergency Management Awareness Month. Whereas emergencies and disasters can occur unexpectedly, posing significant threats to life, property, and the environment, and whereas local emergency managers across all sectors, community leaders, state governments, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, dedicate countless hours to developing preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation programs to protect the lives and property of all persons living in the United States and U.S. territories. And whereas emergency managers across the United States and U.S. territories are charged with establishing and maintaining the capabilities necessary to effectively direct, coordinate, and support emergency and disaster response and recovery efforts. And whereas the mission areas of prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery align with the core capabilities identified in the National Preparedness Goal. And whereas emergency managers serve the nation by responding to countless emergencies and disasters each year, demonstrating commitment, compassion, and professionalism in protecting the public. And whereas the efforts of our nation's emergency managers have helped millions of community members across the United States recover, rebuild, and become more resilient in the face of adversity. Now, therefore, on behalf of Clarence Moriwaki, Mayor of the City of Bainbridge Island, and on behalf of the City Council, I do hereby proclaim the month of August as National Emergency Management Awareness Month in the City of Bainbridge Island, and invite all residents to pay tribute to our emergency management professionals, volunteers, and employees, and to recognize the contributions they make every day toward the health, safety, and quality of life for our community. Dated this 11th day of August, 2026. And to receive this is our very own emergency manager, Ann Lesage.
I would also like to note, Councilmember Schneider and Council, that today's Ann's birthday, and she is coming to accept the proclamation. So the whole month and day for her. Thank you, Ann.
It's on. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm just being Not loud tonight. Good evening, City Council, City staff, and members of the community. My name is Ann Lesage. I'm the emergency manager for the City of Bainbridge Island, and I've had the pleasure of serving our community for the last 8 years. This is the second annual National Emergency Management Awareness Month, and I thought I would take a minute to share a little bit about what it means to be an emergency manager and what we do in emergency management. Emergency managers are planners, coordinators, communicators, connectors, and leaders. We bring together government agencies, nonprofit organizations, businesses, schools, churches, volunteers, and the public to create a safer and more resilient community. Emergency managers are the ones you call 24/7 when an incident requires interdisciplinary coordination and response. At its heart, the work of emergency management is about people. It means helping a family reunite after an evacuation, ensuring older adults and people with disabilities receive necessary support, coordinating with volunteers who want to help, and giving communities confidence that they can recover from even their most difficult days. We are the professionals that every community needs just as much as fire, police, and EMS. I'm proud to be an emergency manager and to join the City of Bainbridge Island in recognizing Emergency Management Awareness Month. I would also like to invite everyone to join us this Friday, August 14th at 4:30 at Hyla Middle School for our Disaster Hubs open house. And you can come and learn about how we are preparing the island for disasters of all kinds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Then item 3B is a presentation from Kitsap Community Resources on the Community Needs Survey.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. It's been maybe 2.5 years since I've been out here, so I really appreciate coming. Last time was a lot of fun. You asked me if I wanted to do this online or come in person. I said, of course, I'll come in person and brave the traffic, right? So thanks for having me. It's great to be here. We're partners with the city and the island of Bainbridge Island.
Thank you. Would you please introduce yourself to the people who may not know who
you guys
you
don't
are?
know who I am? All right. I'm Tony Ives. I'm the executive director of Kitsap Community Resources. So Kitsap Community Resources is a community action agency. We're one of 30 here in Washington State. We collaborate with every community action agency in Washington State. And the point is, we don't do it alone, we do it together. For example, up on the peninsula, that's OLECAP, and we work closely with Port Townsend and OLECAP to get things done. We work closely with the legislature. Even Centro de la Raza is a community action agency. We celebrated our 60th anniversary last year as a long time, but the idea of community action agency is to stamp out poverty, is to fight against the war on poverty. So we appreciate the Bainbridge Island, we appreciate the city council and the mayor and the collaboration that we have from you guys. Next slide, please. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of KCR because maybe some folks don't know who we are, and then I'll dive right into the needs assessment. So one of the important things that we do is our navigation center, the Housing Solution Center, basically through coordinated entry, housing, shelter, rental assistance, and community resources. It's all in one place, and we navigate county, commerce resources, federal resources around the county. Weatherization, many people don't know that we provide weatherization services. I'm going to talk about this one piece of data a little further in this presentation. WIC, I want to say women, infant, and children, we do that as well. I'll tell you a quick little story. When the budget was in jeopardy last year, the federal budget, WIC stopped getting funded. We came together, the food banks around the area, including Fishline, the food banks all around Kitsap County, and St. Michael's Foundation and Virginia Mason, and funded this for a period of time so we could remain open and serve the families that we all need to support. Energy assistance, of course, through LIHEAP, that's low income energy assistance. That's a federal government, but it's also funded through the state. And PSC, Puget Sound Energy, does a really significant part to help families around Kitsap County. Employment and training, we do a lot of work that nobody really knows about. That includes business education in 2 languages, Spanish and English. We do GED, we do employment and training, we provide resume assistance, just trying to get people on their feet and get people employed. And finally, really not finally, we do a lot more, but early learning and family services, that includes Head Start. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot of last year. So in 2025, through a program funded by the county, we supported 210 veterans. That program has actually increased this year. We have 30 caregivers. That's through our kinship program. We supported almost 8,800 households with energy assistance, which is huge. 2,300 kids and families, well, with their families, came through our Christmas Angels program. I have to say, Virginia Mason and the St. Michael's Foundation was a huge supporter of that. We had 15 volunteers that came and helped that, and it was a huge success. And with that, I'd say 800 people went through our employment and training program as well. So of that, boy, I didn't wear my glasses, so I'm like trying to read the data. So here we have 19th Youth went through our mentorship program. So guess what? Commerce calls maybe about 3 weeks ago and said, hey, we want to help Kitsap County. We want to support some of the programs that you are doing, especially around youth. And we want to create a hub, not just in Kitsap, but along the peninsula. Can you guys help us? So our team submitted a proposal on last Friday to do this. It's about $285,000. But this is what we do: collaborate, bring people together, and hopefully we provide a model that funders can come to us and say, hey, can you guys do this for us? And what would this look like? And let's fund this again. So that was going to be a pretty successful program. So Meals on Wheels. Do you guys know we have a full service kitchen? We do the meals in our kitchen, and we produce 75,000 meals for seniors and also for the Head Start kids around Kitsap County last year. This is pretty big. 1,100 referrals for shelters, safe shelters that include domestic violence and avoiding eviction. And thankfully, we had about 500 people donate to KCR, but everybody in this room can donate if they want to. That'd be great. So next slide, please. This is the data I just wanted to concentrate on. So can you blow this up just a little bit? Oh, you can't. Okay, I'm going to speak to it, all right? So last time we did the community needs assessment, it was about 3 years ago. And after the data was produced, I came to present it to Bainbridge and all of the city councils, frankly. And I wanted to be specific with each of the jurisdictions, each of the municipalities. This particular slide, this particular piece of data speaks to Bainbridge Island. So if you remember one thing I said, or maybe you don't, Bainbridge Island and the Bainbridge Island Community Foundation really wanted to know affordability here on the island. How many people, the zip code where you live and zip code where you worked, because they were concerned that people that actually work in City Hall can't actually afford to live in this area. So we put that on the survey, and it became a really important, significant point of data, not just here in Bainbridge Island, but across Kitsap County. Even in the city of Paulsbo, they recognize that too. So in this slide, I'm just going to remember some things. So basically, 50% of the folks said they had no concerns. Okay, great. Cost of rent, 25% of the folks that took the survey in Bainbridge Island had an issue. Cost of utilities, about 15% of the people. Not enough energy, not enough housing, are rental housing, are housing to even buy. 16% of the folks that said that. And one other thing that is notable, weatherization. That's weatherization of your windows, or repairs, or even your porch for a senior that can be difficult. 12% of the folks that responded in Bainbridge Island said they had an issue with. And we're going to try to recreate that, to build on the data, to see the changes in this in this needs assessment that we're currently working on. Next slide, please. Before I want to say one more thing. It's about shelter and eviction risk. So in each of those categories, 3% responded that said they were fearful of eviction, or there weren't enough shelters. Okay, I thought that was notable. So we are managed by the Department of Commerce. It's on the federal level and the state. Basically, we report to them. We have to do a needs assessment every 3 years. And we're right on track to do that. But what we try to do is collect inputs from Kitsap County residents. We try to identify the needs and priorities. We inform our partners, including this council, and we try to develop programs, services, and strategic planning around that. Of course, we don't do that ourselves. We do this with all our partners, like the KPHD, that's Kitsap Public Health District, who's also part of this survey, Virginia Mason, the Housing Kitsap, and Bremerton Housing Authority. All of this stuff, we come to Kitsap Mental Health. We all work together, even with this survey, but more importantly, to develop services. Last time we did 10 focus groups. This year we're doing 8 or 10. So far we've done 2, when we have another one tomorrow. Our first one was with unhoused populations. People came from Port Orchard and Bremerton, and it was impactful, what we heard. Last week, we worked with the immigrant population. So it was translated in Mom and Spanish, which was very, very cool. I speak Spanish. So it was all done in Spanish with a translator for some interested parties. The survey opened July 6th. It's going to close at the end of October, and that includes the focus groups. Then we'll run it through KPHD, the epidemiologists there. Their team will work closely with us, and we'll release the data. So we try to release anybody who wants the raw data. We release it to them. In fact, Kitsap Transit wanted it the last time, and over here in Kingston, they developed a new route just because of the data represented that. That's true with the health district and with Virginia Mason. So the data's not ours. We share it, and we hope to use that data for collaboration, and not just that, but to just show either improvements or areas that we can either improve or develop. I'll tell you the top 3 or 4 needs from the last survey. The first one was housing and housing assistance and affordability of housing. The second was information about resources and services in multiple languages. That includes Spanish, Mom, which is a difficult one, English, and Tagalog. The third one was healthcare and access to healthcare. One interesting thing that I talk about, because it was notable, was that the dearth of OBGYNs and doctors and the acceptance of certain insurance here. We saw that last time, and I suspect that there will be a change in that, not for the better, in this survey coming up. And then the last one was transportation. That was a concern for many people, especially the working folks. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is the deal. This is how it rolls. So the CNA, the Community Needs Assessment, we gather community feedback to identify the greatest needs. We had 4,200 respondents last time, which was amazing in itself. Right now, I think we have close to 1,000. It's only been open just for a little over a month, so we hope to not just duplicate, but exceed that number. But even if we don't, the importance is evaluating the differences and collecting the data, and then proceeding from there. So from the CNA, we identify the most urgent needs facing the communities, and for KCR, Kitsap Community Resources, we try to focus our team and our resources around these services. And that includes working with the folks that we collaborate with. The annual impact, this is the 2024. I just showed you the 2025. And then it feeds right into our strategic plan. Where are we the next 3 years? What are we going to do the next 3 years? And for this city council, I just like to ask, every city council that I get in front of, they ask me about certain things. Certain council members have certain priorities, veteran services or weatherization. Here, I see your priorities. Here are affordable housing. We're trying to expand and do certain things in each community that are their priorities. So I ask you to let us know. Last week, the city of Paulsville really they wanted to reach out to us about veteran services. So hooked up with our manager of veteran services. We're going to coordinate a plan to put a navigator in this area to receive and give out information. So I'd ask the same of this city council just to consider that. Next slide, please. I'm going to skip the slide because this data is countywide and it's not duplicative of the Bainbridge Island data because it's very different. It's got some similarities to it. So I know the council's under a tight timeline. So your voice matters. We've done this survey in Spanish and English. I encourage you guys to tell your friends, tell your family. Hopefully we'll put it on the website. It's on the Kitsap County website, the city of Bainbridge. I'm doing the tour and everyone's putting the QR code on the website. So I encourage everybody to look at that QR code. I've got some cards and brochures that I'll leave. Tell your friends and I thank you. All right. And I'm here for any questions if you need, you know where I am, but thank you. Hey, just a shout out to the city attorney. His socks are very cool. I just want to say that. All right.
Well, thank you so much for your important work and presentation and spending the time to come to our city. City council members, do you have any questions? Councilmember Franklin Johnson.
I want to see those socks now.
No!
Thank you, Anthony,
No question.
for coming out. We appreciate it. As being, I guess, a former board member of the group,
We miss you, by the way.
I really understand, the dire need that we're in with our communities. I just wanted to ask you, what methodology do you use when you get all the data? What do you do to it
So I'll tell you something that happened. I've learned a lot about surveying because of all the stuff that you see around data, the bots and looking at IP addresses that come through. And KPHD, Kitsap Public Health District, has been instrumental in scrubbing the data and evaluating the data. So we use their epidemiologists. So I'll give you an example. Last time around, this is 3 years ago, you can imagine that the bots have gotten even more sophisticated. So 3 years ago, they discovered, oh, we're getting all these responses from one IP address. And they were like, lots of the same answers, right? And so we scrubbed it and we're like, okay, well, that doesn't look right, right? So we have to be careful about getting the right, not the right responses, that's the wrong word, but responses from folks just like us, right? So, so KPHD is our go-to. The Department of Commerce has recognized this. In fact, they've kind of not duplicated, but encouraged other community action agencies to use our same methodology. And at least 7 CAPs around Washington State has already done that. The idea is to roll this up to the Department of Commerce so we can see and compare data around the state. So right now, we're the model. We've become the model. And I couldn't be prouder. We just have to do the work.
Councilmember Nelson?
Thank you for the important work you do, and of course for coming all the way down here, right? No,
I asked for a ferry to go back to Port Orchard, but
well, and just to follow up, so since it's sort of self-selecting, so is it considered scientifically or statistically valid, the survey?
well, yes, sir, it is. And again, I would love to share the raw data with you and even the methodology if you'd like to see it. And I'll grab that from the health district, but they do this all the time. And other people have evaluated that and used the same model.
Any further questions? Well, thanks so much, Anthony. And on behalf, oh, Ashley, sorry. Didn't see you there, Ashley, please.
That's okay, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Tony, for being here and presenting to us and for doing the important work that you do. I have the chance to serve as vice chair of the Kitsap Public Health District Board, and this was a very important item for us. And yes, it is I forget how my colleague worded it, but yes, to answer his question. I just wanted to highlight for the community the mom language, because that was something that I learned. We actually translated into mom, which is, I did not know what it was. It's a Mayan language spoken by over 500,000 indigenous people. And it's Guatemala, parts of Chiapas, Mexico, a lot of folks in Oakland, and many residents of Kitsap County. And so when we initially did this, we translated it and it was not quite right. Our translator told us, so we redid the video just to get as many folks to take the survey as possible. So if you see the QR code, please share it, because the more data we get in, the more data we get out.
Thank you, council member. Thank you.
On behalf of the council, thanks so much, Tony. We look forward to seeing the results of your latest survey.
Okay, I see you in like 3 years then.
All right, looking
Thank
forward
you.
to that. You bet. Now we're moving on to public comment. Take the sign-up sheet, remind people public comment simply received by the council with no response, and the council can't deliberate on items that are not on the agenda. The lack of comments from the council is not an endorsement or denial of your comments. Hold your comments to 3 minutes, please. And give your name and I'll do it in 2 names in a row. So the first name is up and the second one is ready to go after that person is completed. We have the sign-up sheet. First name is Tony Ives, I believe, and followed by Chris Frey. Oh, public speaking. Yeah, he was here. Chris Frey, followed by David Schultz. Yeah, please come forward.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Chris Fry, and I live down near Linwood Center. I'd like to comment on 2 topics, notably recent infrastructure costs and the start of the budget season. The city in the last few years has finished 2 large infrastructure projects that were significantly over budget, or at least way over original estimates. And I'm talking about the water tower and the Head of the Bay project. Personally, to surprise you, I like the Head of the Bay project. I think it's resulted in a much better bike and walking safety. I think it's slowed traffic significantly. And it's just an overall safer experience for someone who goes through it on a twice-a-day basis that I typically do in the South End. And I think over time, it'll be easily recognized and appreciated in years to come, after all the controversy dies down. But the problem is, at what cost? There's valid criticisms about spending $17 million, which is the numbers I've seen between the 2 combined projects, for such a short stretch of roadway. And in a city of only 10,000 households, that's $1,700 a household, if you think about it. Some of the same might be said of the water tower construction for a system of only 3,600 connections, give or take. Now, these might be all necessary and prudent and wise infrastructure, and I'm not going to get into a 20/20 hindsight debate about this. So, as you enter the budget season, please think about this in relationship to, of all things, the general fund, and the general fund in relationship to city headcount. For most cities, the general fund often is a fail-safe of sorts. It funds much of our headcount FTEs and services, while at the same time, it can be a safety net for capital project saving, for capital project budgeting. It's a safety net, and for when we have cost overruns. So I think there was some general fund money spent to finish the Head of the Bay project that wasn't necessarily anticipated. So when you have an unsustainable growth in city headcount, this can cause year-over-year personnel expenses that can weaken this safety net. And sometimes to the point of exhaustion of past accumulated general fund surpluses and reserves. So it's something just to be careful of. I realize we're not in a budget crisis per se, but it's better to be looking at this now in a forward-looking fashion rather than be in a budget crisis at some point where we have an expense and revenue way out of whackness that gets us in trouble. So just food for thought as you guys enter the budget season, and I appreciate your time. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. David Schultz, followed by Stephen Hoskins. David Schultz.
Good evening, council members. My name is David Schutz, and as you know, I'm a Bainbridge Island resident up on Sunrise Bluff in the northeast portion. Tonight, I'd like to address my comments specifically to your work on the 2027-2028 budget, and more specifically on the issue of road maintenance. And I think it's important for us to concentrate on the need for an expansion, not only of basic road maintenance, but of rehabilitation. Back in 2023, the city commissioned an independent study of the condition of more than 280 lane miles of roads that are the responsibility of Bainbridge Island to maintain. The score we got back on a 100-point scale was 70. That's a C grade. Now, you look at it and roads are something we use on a daily basis. To a certain extent, it's the most direct contact between a service provided by Bainbridge Island and its individual residents. The recent study commissioned by Kobe, looking at attitudes of the public to guide you in the budgeting process, overwhelmingly, over 50% told you that roads were their number one item. It's in January of this year, our former director of public works, the person responsible for taking care of our roads, addressed you and his concern that the maintenance budget that he was being provided in his department, allowing for inflationary changes, would be inadequate to maintain the current road standard, and thought within a few years the road score would deteriorate, perhaps to 65. Now let's look at a comparative basis real quickly at some of the other services on the island, maybe to rank it. The fire department, the public schools department, the park system, all of them rank at 95% or greater. One of the greatest public services that Kobe provides to its citizens is its roads, and it gets a C- rating of 70. So I'd like you to consider that as you go forth and formulate the new budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, David. Stephen Hoskins, followed by John Quitzlin.
Good evening, Council. Steve Hoskins, I live in Winslow, here to talk about commerce and this extension situation. So I understand that commerce has given us kind of one last chance to run some development regulations past them tomorrow, and then they'll let us know if they're okay by Friday. And so I kind of want to advocate for something that I think could make use of that opportunity. I was liaising with Councilmember Nelson, sort of saying, are you sure this letter can't be read to allow for the May values? And I understand that the interpretation within the city is no, Commerce wants the February values. So I actually am going to ask you not to pass those as they stand in your agenda packet. My concern is that if we go to those values, then the large parcels, the 2-acre parcels that could be developed under the mandatory inclusionary zoning program might get lost to market rate in the interim months. So what I'm going to propose is, I think a workable solution is to ask you to direct the planning staff to send to Commerce the February values plus the 2-acre mandatory inclusionary zoning program. So the one that we had and we've moved away from, which I think we can resurrect. The reason for it is that I spoke with Laura from Commerce to ask whether the development regulations we send have to have a completed capacity analysis to go with them. And she said, yes, but that there is this kind of slight open door for analysis showing that, quote, this is her words, there's a reasonable expectation based on that analysis that the capacity will be met. And so what I'm thinking is that, you know, if we send away the February values with the February LCA, plus the June 12th memo from LMN showing that the 2-acre mandatory program adds units, that should be pretty convincing to them. And what works nicely about it is that it'll protect those large parcels, at least for the interim months, so we don't lose them to fully market rate. So yeah, and then the idea would be if Commerce comes back on Friday saying, yes, this is fine, then we go ahead with the interim zoning ordinance on the 25th and get the extension. And if they say no, I actually think in that situation, going non-compliant is the better option because because of the mixed income that you can get from the builder's remedy. I don't want us to go there. I hope Commerce says that it's fine, but you know, we have to work within the space that we have. And I also think that it'll be nicer for the island because we'll have stronger grounds to say, you know, look, we tried to get this through Commerce. They said we had to do this, the February values, and they wouldn't let us protect these prime lots for mixed income. So too bad. We're going to go non-compliant. So I would rather not do that. I'd rather do this February values plus the 2-acre mandatory program to protect them, but who knows? So yeah, I don't know. If this is interesting to you, I think the motion would need to direct the planning staff to prepare those regulations, send them off tomorrow. They have to be the February values plus the 2-acre MIS. And then I think maybe we also need to say, if Commerce comes back compliant, proceed with the interim zoning ordinance and the public hearing and everything on the 24th. There's an idea. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. John Quitson, followed by Carol Clement.
Good evening, council and planning staff there. Many people, myself included, are bothered and bewildered by a dearth of information when it comes to the work that you're doing with the negotiation with the planners at the Department of Commerce and also completion of this Winslow sub-area plan and the comprehensive plan. How is the city going to move forward? I always look for information in the packet, and sometimes there's a lot. Sometimes it's kind of iffy. What will be decided? What will be revealed, and that sort of thing. Let's pause for a moment to reflect on how we got in this hole. I think it was a mistake to request a 120-day extension. The argument supporting the request was weak. It did not rest upon a clear-eyed account of the work that remains in completing the implementing development regulations and the time required for public hearings and the final EIS. Those things are taken into account, but the public really needs to understand better what remains to be done. Is the council close to consensus on what the city's next step should be? With advice from planning staff and from Commerce, do council members know what the scope of the remaining work amounts to? Concerned citizens have been told very little. I can make some educated guesses, but people who know relatively little about community planning and the regulations that we all work with can reach rash conclusions or make false assumptions, and that really spreads misinformation. Some people say, for instance, that all of the upzoning in Winslow will only produce more market rate housing. It's a drag when opposition forms around fragments of information, while the council stands aloof, unwilling to see the problems and correct the record. It's also a drag when council members stand aloof from people with expert knowledge and good ideas. The extension request dated July 24th, just before the public hearing, says our council continues to refine the Planning Commission's recommendations to ensure compliance and so on. We're working to refine assumptions for height, FAR, lot coverage, and so on. What progress has been made? Will the council accept the key items in the interim control document that's included in tonight's agenda packet? I think that would be a step in the right direction. I'm looking forward to the council's discussion and be decisive to the extent that you can. I see that in preparation for the discussion of budget priorities, 6 of the 7 council members supported action on affordable housing, and 6 also supported actions related to our water resources. That's a good balance and those are proper priorities, and they need those areas of concern need to be carried forward with a linked understanding of how they interact with each other. That's probably the time for me to stop. I'm a little over time. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for wrapping up. Carol Clement, followed by John Grinter.
Good evening, Carol Clement. I live in Wing Point. So I wanted to talk about the budget this evening. I am concerned, like other people have spoken about, the overruns in the head of the bay fish passage. It's basically 2x what I believe the original budget is. I don't know what has been done in terms of an investigation of this to understand if it's a scope creep, if it wasn't estimated properly, if there's fraud. I mean, I don't know. And I think the only way you do get to the bottom of it is to do a thorough postmortem. And I think that is really, really required, especially when we're talking about the community concerned about roads and infrastructure. You know, these are public works projects. We've heard our roads are in disrepair and need a lot of work, and a lot of money's got to go into this. I've heard talk about that there might be a bond floated to pay for roads, which I think should be part of the general budget. So I don't know whether that's true or not, but these are big projects, and it's incumbent upon you to be fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' dollars and to know why we have huge overruns. When I look at the priorities up there, I don't see anything about fiscal responsibility or good stewardship of the budget. Perhaps you think that's table stakes, but I bet if you were to ask most of the citizens, they wouldn't say that. They'd say that's core responsibility of our government. So I would urge you, as you go into the budget season, to understand how have we gone awry. I would ask you to look at the FTEs and the growth in government since COVID. And are all those people that have been added either as vendors or FTEs, are those really necessary for the core, budget responsibilities that we have, and that the community has told you in the recent survey that they're interested in? So again, I would like to thank you for your time and your efforts, and on behalf of the community, and for allowing us to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. John Grinter, followed by Mary Hellman.
Thank you, Council. John Grinter, Haley Loop. I'm speaking as a private individual, not a member of the Mobility Advisory Committee, which, thank you, I appreciate the opportunity to serve on that. Well, we're talking a lot about infrastructure, and I think we should dive into that. I think the community might not understand the difficulties of trying to provide basic infrastructure and get passing grades on it on an island with 280 lane miles of roads to maintain. It's often easier to think of this city because of its geographic size as a county. And through that perspective, you start realizing how difficult it is to just get clean water, public safety, the basics. I give council credit for spending local funds almost primarily for the head of the Bay project. Not going to go into the details of what went wrong, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with the earlier person who said that in a couple of years this will die down. I think it is a big improvement. And importantly, this is the first, other than the bridge, which was grant funded, the other $3 million came from local funds. And I think that's a big step forward. And there aren't going to be any grants coming soon. I think we know from just the general picture, they're not coming soon. So I give you credit for spending those local funds. And I hope that with my work on the committee and the committee in general, that we can help give you projects that deliver good bang for the buck. They're pragmatic. They address existing needs. They stress collaboration on some of the larger projects. I think that there are some bigger projects where we're very close to the final mile, and that those are things that I can support. I want to just point out, when you fund transportation, not non-motorized, just transportation, which is how I think we should look at all of these. When you look at the list of council priorities, areas of emphasis, they're kind of similar to what's in the comprehensive plan. These are what we care about. Road maintenance, that's pretty standard. That's going to be part of transportation. Groundwater, stormwater. Why would that matter? Well, because a lot of our narrow roads, we have very narrow right-of-ways. They're bounded on one side by power poles or steep drop-offs. They have a lot of physical constraints. They also have usually a ditch on one side. So when we're coming up with a stormwater and groundwater management plan, it may involve needing to move water from one place to where we know that it percolates over here. That may involve tightlining ditches that are now alongside a road. Well, if you tightline and that tightlining means putting a pipe underground. It's not as simple as it seems, unfortunately, but that's one way to free up 4 feet, 5 feet of room for a shoulder. Picture the tunnel on Fletcher Bay Road between Linwood Center Road and High School that a lot of us have got affected that during the detour. Not only is it a potential evacuation route, but it's very narrow, it's very tight, and those conditions repeat themselves throughout the island. So I can just say I think that the mix of projects that we've recommended for budget through the Mobility Advisory Committee are a mix of pragmatic projects that address existing needs, and then with an emphasis on collaborating with large organizations, whether it's WashDOT, PSC, the Parks and District. So I think I'm positive about where we're going. I appreciate the fact that you did spend that money, and I hope that we can work as a committee to guide it in a pragmatic way that works for the success for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mary Hellman, followed by Haynes Gorey. Heckman, sorry, handwriting was a little tough.
It's all right. It's all right. It's a weird name. What I wrote down was that I'm here to talk about the Lehigh contract, but that's not really what I'm here to talk about, because you're probably wondering, why are we talking about that on a day where we're talking about budgets? But I've done a lot of work with that particular contract, as many of you know, and I'm really here to talk about responsible contracting and how vitally important it is that you do responsible contracting, because that's where your budget overruns are going to happen. So, what's my background and why would I care about this? I got involved, thanks to Dawn, who's in the back there, with the SEPA case, and therefore ran across the Lehigh contract. And I read it and I went, wow, this is a design build contract. Well, I've worked in the utility industry for 40 years as a lawyer, and I spent 10 of those years building power plants under design build contracts. I know them really well. I've written them, I've negotiated them, I've interpreted them, I've worked with engineers on them. So I know that a design build contract is an inherently risky contract. You're giving the same person the job of the architect and the contractor. And when you build a home, you would never do that, because it's your architect that comes there every day and makes sure that's being built according to the design. So when you put both those functions with one entity, it's inherently risky, which is why the state of Washington won't let you sign that kind of contract on a public works project, which this is, unless you're certified, and you're not certified. So, and what does that certification involve? It means that you have to have on your staff people who can oversee a construction project. It's just due diligence. And when we built power plants, I had a sophisticated group of engineers, in-house, but we still hired an owner's engineer on every project to be out there every single day to make sure that it was being actually built according to the design. If you don't have that, you have no way of knowing, even if you have a decent design, that you're going to get what you need. So this is an inherently risky contract, and the state of Washington has told you that. In fact, the state of Washington has told you not to sign it. And yet, I'm not sure where it sits or where it's going, but to me, this is now a lesson in responsible contracting, that you do have to pay attention to those kind of things. So back on March 5, Responsible Bainbridge filed a very lengthy letter outlining concerns with the contract, including the legal issue I just mentioned. On April 10, we also filed a follow-up letter with a list of questions that we suggested you ask Lehigh. Like, if you're really determined to go forward with this, ask them some hard questions. One of the things I would want to know, because they're going to do it through a limited liability company, and I see that all the time, where's the parent guarantee? Where's Lehigh's commitment? Because there is none. As soon as you sign the ground lease, they walk away. You're dealing with one entity. It's a shell entity set up to do financing. And that's who's going to operate, construct, maintain everything. That's all you've got. My question is, why is Lehigh not putting skin in the game? Those questions can be asked. You're not committed yet to that contract. But again, it comes back to being responsible in the contracting. And you should expect the other side to have skin in the game. You should expect them to be willing to step up. I'll hurry because I'm near 3 minutes, but I was concerned because this isn't my direct practice area. Power plants are certainly very complex constructions. They're 200 to 300 million easily each. So you do it really carefully. I wanted to make sure that the housing industry was similar. So I got a hold of Ted Baumgarten, who was very generous with his time. Ted is a construction consultant who has testified in over 800 cases. He's been an expert witness in 800 cases and testified in over 400. The guy knows what he's talking about. And his concerns were even greater than mine. So you have this level of talent sitting here in your community trying to communicate with you. These are things that were filed back in March and April, and I haven't seen any follow-up. So what I'm asking is, it isn't about whether you want to do affordable housing or 65 or anything like that. I'm asking for responsible contracting. Negotiate your contracts. Don't just take them from the other side. Because I can tell you the difference between the sales job that you get and the contract that you see tells you a lot about the corporate culture. And I've seen that in contract after contract after contract. And there is a very big difference between what you were sold by Lehigh and what they put in that contract.
Thank you, Mary. You're a minute and a half over and you've made your point very clearly. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Clarence.
Haynes, Gorey.
Hey, good evening, council, city manager, city attorney, city staff. Hayes Gorey here on behalf of Wintergreen Townhomes for the development team. Regarding the agenda item where the council is going to consider whether to support a grant application or to authorize staff to help with the grant application. Of course, we are hoping that you will see fit to do that. I sent an email last night to council, and so I know everyone's busy. I'm going to try and hit the highlights. I don't want to be duplicative, but nonetheless, I want to make sure that the information is imparted. So we're very mindful of using staff's time wisely. And so I want to assure council that, number one, I think we have an excellent chance upon reapplication. We applied last year. We were 1 point shy, 1 point shy. We got 74 points, 75 was the cutoff. So I think we have an excellent chance upon reapplication of getting an award. And number two, that the project really does need the money. This is not about padding the coffers or anything like that. I mean, at times are tough and getting tougher. So after we applied last year, we were 1 point shy. We had a debrief with Department of Commerce, actually the head of the CHIP grant program, Misha Venables. We had a nice Zoom conference with her, a couple of her colleagues, a very honest back and forth. Hey, here's how we perceived your project. And they had a couple misconceptions, some of which are on us, some of which I think that it's a bit of a round peg, square hole when you've got a private developer doing a mixed open market and affordable. I just think it's kind of scrambles their brain. They're used to like Housing Resources Bainbridge or Housing Kitsap or Bremerton Housing Authority. So we had a frank discussion about, hey, there are challenges unique to private developers doing this kind of a development. And they took that on board. And they said, well, we're going to consider that. We're going to look at our scoring. We're going to see if it is in fact prejudicial or too favorable to the housing authorities or whatever the case may be. So we have that, all those lessons learned that we got from Department of Commerce. And so this go around, we're going to have a much better application. We're going to add a couple things that weren't in, that should have been in last time, but we learned that they're going to be in like an infrastructure connection. We're going to include our letters of support. We're going to put a finer point on the need for affordable housing on Bainbridge Island, because strangely, we only got about 6 points out of 10 last go around. I don't know why that was so low. We also got a low score on the community support and the varied and secured funding, which is kind of odd too. Anyway, long story short, many ways in which we can improve our application, and I think we have an excellent chance of getting the award. And lastly, in that regard, last time they gave 5 points for the application or for the scoring solely for reapplying. So if we just got those 5 points this time and no other improvements, that would have pushed us over the top. So anyway, and I just want to point out that in terms of the need for the project for this money, it's tremendous, right? We got our plat application in late 2021 and things have only gotten worse since then. You all know inflation, tariffs, construction costs, and importantly, USDA financing, that very low, the subsidized financing down to 1% for low income and very low income buyers. That's pretty much unavailable now. And that's a devastating blow for the affordable component of this project. And so, the pendulum seems to be swinging at the state level and at the city level as well. There's a recognition that folks that do affordable housing development need financial help. A good example is MFTE. Now, originally it was available only for the affordable units in a project. Now it's available to affordable and open market, because the reality is you don't make a lot of money on the affordable units, so you need to try to make it up somewhat on the open markets to make this all pencil. So point being, I think we have an excellent chance, and we'd very much appreciate your support. It would really help the project and help these low income buyers and also the middle income buyers who are going to take these open market units as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Hayes. Is there anyone in the audience who would like the opportunity to speak? Please come forward, and say your name. You have 3 minutes. Please try to adhere to that.
Good evening, council members. Hope everybody's doing well. Real short comments. I just want to reinforce what I heard earlier from somebody else calling for fiscal responsibility. And yes, it wasn't that long ago, last year, when there was discussion here at the city council about floating a bond or levy lift to pay for road maintenance. That should not happen. That's a core responsibility of city government. And I can tell you, if you end up floating a bond or a levy lid, I'll be campaigning against it, because that's not something you should be doing. What you should be doing is prioritizing all the things that are your part of your core mission on Bainbridge Island, and then taking a look at the other things that aren't necessarily need to be funded. I would take a look at all the staff positions. We've had a lot more staff positions over the last couple of years. Are they all necessary? And maybe that's something you're going to look at after you decide how much money you need for other projects and things. But that's all I have. I just want to reinforce, please be fiscally responsible. Thank you.
And for the record, that was Ron Peltier. Next, please state your name.
Lisa Neal, I live in Bainbridge Island. I'll just agree with the people that have talked about the budget. I think that what's happened over the years is there was a budget that had everything was covered, and then people started saying, what else can we do? What do we want to do? And unfortunately, what we then put ourselves in the position of is some of the things that people assumed were happening, like the roads, weren't happening. One of my pet peeves is we only have one code enforcement officer. And I've spoken to him a few times, and the one who's here now. And why don't we have more than one? That's one of the things, maybe a survey with the community to say, what do you think might be missing in what's happening? Because there are probably many things that I haven't thought of. But that's what I had on the budget. And, you have all the details in front of you. I was a little surprised to hear that Commerce is now saying, hey, give us some more something new, and then maybe we'll decide tomorrow, this is all very loosey-goosey. I don't really understand how the public hearings are going to happen after something's been approved by Commerce, and you guys have somehow already approved it somewhere, not in a hearing. So please, let's maybe make sure things are in the right order so that at least people can comment before something's done. And I think about this a lot, and I just think, if we're just going to do a stopgap ordinance that provides upzoning in Winslow, why wouldn't we just say it's all affordable and just put some income bands on it? And someone would say, well, Commerce will say it won't be built. And I would say, well, all you're going to build is market rate, and that won't comply with the GMA. So, I just don't see this. This all seems like an illegitimate process to me. So good luck with that. Now, one thing that I saw on this sheet, and I've also been following this to a degree, is we've got these costs for the infrastructure for the Wintergreen project that we just heard about. We've got the other costs for the Bethany Lutheran project. The first Bethany Lutheran was going to have some kind of packet system, and it was going to be inside the funding. Then they wanted $1 million or needed $1 million, so that got a grant. And now there's another $400,000. And my point with all this is these are relatively expensive projects to build, in part because of where they are. They aren't where the infrastructure already is. And I think this really highlights why it is such a mistake to take Winslow proper, where there is infrastructure, and give away density for non-affordable builds. And I think part of what y'all need to do, and it's very difficult, I know, is really keep all these balls in your mind, these balls in the air or plates in the air, however you want to say it, and try to get to the finish line, because right now you're not going to get anywhere near the finish line. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak? Please come forward, state your name, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, Council. My name's Dawn Jano. I live on Terra Lane down on the south end on Bainbridge Island. I wasn't sure I was going to speak tonight, and I might not even need to because some of the comments tonight were really magnificent and speak to a lot of what I was going to talk about. Just a couple of things. I'm going to put in a plug for Hayes's project and for applying for the grants for both Finch Green and Wintergreen. I think they're both excellent projects, and I would like to see them finished. And if we can get grant money, thumbs up on that. Yeah, and again, you've got a beefy agenda tonight, but the way that they now weave together in terms of the budget, and when we take a look at the additional expenditures that you guys are going through and the comprehensive plan. So I think all of these things come together in a way that I'm not sure council has yet looked at holistically. Have we taken a broad look at what do we really want to do? We have these priorities up here. I heard back from some council members. I sent you guys, I think, an email about your list of priorities, but those priorities are based on, I'm not quite sure what. They're just based on 120 projects, and we could pick a couple out of the hat versus what do they cost? How do they align with our priorities? And how do they fit into the overall scheme of a situation? I'm just going to relay a little bit. I was at the Parks Board meeting on Thursday night. We were going to do a little controlled burn ban. And while it seemed like a really great project and we had grant funding for it, it didn't really fit into the overall plan. So the idea was we won't take those grant funds for this year. We're going to take a year and study an overall look at how are we going to manage fire mitigation and these burn bans on the island. So sometimes pausing and taking a break and not just chasing the money might be a sound way to go. And I would really advocate for you guys. I know this is a huge agenda tonight, and I appreciate how much work you have to do. But again, just trying to keep all these balls in the air and also communicate to the public. I mean, I didn't hear that we had other communication from Commerce until, Stephen said it tonight. So now on Friday, you guys get to say something else. I don't even know how it's possible to do an interim ordinance by the 25th. So I'm going to agree. I think we should maybe just let that 25th date expire, come what may, and keep working, doing the good work that you're doing. And again, putting in a plug for whatever capacity we have. Let's advocate that we get as much affordable housing out of that as possible and try and tamp down some of the housing that we already do have capacity for. I'll end it there. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like this opportunity to speak? Seeing none, City Manager, do we have anyone online to speak? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, move to item number 6 or number 5, consent agenda. Councilmember Nelson.
I would like to pull item 5F.
Is there a second? I would propose that we do the council consent agenda, and then we can talk about it in the motion. That's very, very point. That way we don't have to do a double vote on it.
Point of information, I'm
Yeah,
not sure I
that was-
understand.
that was-
Normally
that was-
we pull items from it, then we approve what's
Right.
left over, and then we address each of those pulled items in
Right.
turn.
Councilman Nelson, I hadn't recognized you, but thank you. I mentioned this last time that we can move the consent agenda, have it second, and then you have time for discussion. Then you bring up that item on discussion. If then there's a feeling that it needs to be reconsidered or moved, then let's do that. But I think that this is an easier way to do it because you go through double motions, and we have done that in the past. So that would be my suggestion. There's still a motion on the floor to have the consent. Okay, there isn't a second to your motion.
Point of order, there's no motion required. Any member can pull an item. And that's what it says under the description, under the consent agenda.
Fair point. I was just trying to do something process that would be more efficient, but if that's the council's choice, then let's do that. I'm still waiting for a motion.
For the rest of the agenda.
I'm still waiting for a motion on consent agenda.
I would like to actually pull item 5E from the consent agenda as
Okay.
well.
Is there a second to this motion?
Do we need?
Well,
a
point of order, it's not a motion.
Okay.
Just a,
All right. Okay, let's move this on. I will move it out of the agenda. So now we have before us, if I'm reading this correctly, consent agenda with item 5E now being placed at just before item number 6 on our agenda.
And
What? And, okay, now, all right, both of those after. Very good. Now, do we have an emotion for this consent agenda as amended?
I move to approve the consent agenda, not including items 5E and 5F.
There we go. Is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Which we could have been that time. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And online, Councilmember Matthews votes aye. Council votes 6, the chair votes aye, so it's 7-0. So now let's move to item number 5E to discuss this. And Councilmember Land, I believe you asked to move that out.
Yes, thank you so much, Mayor. So item 5E states authorize the interim city manager to execute an interlocal agreement with Kitsap County for noxious weed control. I just wanted to pull this from the consent agenda for just a quick public acknowledgement of some considerations and some feedback I've received from community members about exactly what this interlocal allows to happen on Bainbridge as far as chemicals. And so I understand that there's mandated eradication based on state mandates, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about how this is applied to Bainbridge. And
Thank you, Councilmember Lant. Ellen Schroer, Interim City Manager. I will say by way of introduction and then invite our Interim Public Works Director, Mr. Hash, to come up and speak to this also. This is a renewal of an existing agreement or a prior agreement. It does not change the city's code in any way, but simply allows us to, as you note, perform the state mandated services around noxious weed control by working with the county and to use subcontractors that they have identified to do that work. If you have particular questions or specifics that you'd like to ask Mr. Hash, I invite him to the podium and I think he'd be happy to help you.
wonderful. Thank you so much. I have one question.
Good evening, Council. This is Henry Hash, Interim Public Works Director. Pleasure to be here before you tonight. I hope you're all doing wonderful.
Thank you so much, Interim Public Works Director Hash. I so appreciate you coming up. I reached out to you earlier today just to ask a little bit about what options are for island residents if they want to or choose to opt out of some of this mandated or other kind of eradication that this interlocal agreement would put into place. So this is the question to you is what are options for residents?
Certainly. There are two parts in noxious weed control. One is the interlocal agreement with Kitsap County. That's what before you tonight. The other one to come before you in future council meetings is the updating the code for using different chemicals. Tonight is just that. But I will answer your question, although it's not in this agenda. There is no reason for residents to opt out because we are going to apply the chemical only per request, certain locations. And I will just read what I have. The use is restricted to designated noxious weeds only, not general ground maintenance or vegetation control. So the product is applied in areas as requested by our residents. So that is the answer to that question. And for tonight's interlocal agreement, we had an agreement. It expired in 2024. We are required to deal with noxious weeds. We haven't been able to do it since 2024. Simply, we did not have this agreement, and we could not use a contractor that county has it. So if you approve this tonight, we'll be able to go and call a contractor to address this. However, before we do that, we need to have part two, which is coming to you with updating the codes.
Thank you, Interim Director. Do you have a follow-up, Councilmember Blunt?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. That answered my questions very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Yeah, just for clarification, if I call and say there's a bunch of tansy along, I don't know, well, wherever, Baker Hill Road or something like that, and it's not my property, but it's in the city right away, I assume the response will be to treat that area. It's not the homeowner. And so I think if that's what you're getting at, my guess is that's going to happen when there are noxious weeds, which is one of the reasons that we need to focus on step 2 when it comes forward is deciding whether we're comfortable with the chemicals. And I just want to make that sure that was clear, if it was correct.
Okay. Any further questions for our Interim Director? Councilmember Franklin Johnson?
I just need a clarification on what was just said. So it sounded like, okay, part 1 is just saying that we can use the contractors to deal with the weeds. And the part that's coming to us is talking about what kind of chemicals. What I don't understand is how can a homeowner say, no, I don't want you to put this on Baker Hill? You can't.
The question is directed to the Interim Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council Member. We only respond to calls and requests to do it. So we are not going to just go across and apply the chemical. So there is really no need for a homeowner to call to opt out because we are not going to do it unless they ask us to do it. Right. And we are required to address by the state and the county. So
I understand that, but I think what Councilmember Hytopoulos, the example she used was that if I see noxious weeds growing somewhere and I call you, not as the homeowner, but as someone else and say, can you spray those weeds I saw? Are you going to do that or are you going to check with the homeowner to see if they want to opt out?
Yes, we will check with the homeowner. Absolutely.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Just one comment. This isn't the night to do it, but we need to talk further about this because we do have some really significant out of control weeds. I'm a big advocate for avoiding chemicals entirely if possible. So I'm not advocating for the chemicals, but we have to catch up and we certainly can't just have ultimately our program be that if I ask in front of my parcel and otherwise these weeds that are really out of control and actually can be harmful to horses and can do all sorts of damage in the environment, we actually have to, and we have a state obligation to take care of it. So let's have a more fulsome conversation about our policies when we talk about our chemicals.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and Councilmember Matthews. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up there.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Actually, Deputy Mayor just brought up exactly what I was going to mention was the horse aspect. So thank you. I just did want to clarify or get some clarification on the Baker Hill. So if someone called on noxious weeds and they're taken care of, is there the ability for someone who, say, lived in that parcel on Baker Hill to opt out? That was, I think, what the
This question is directed to the interim director.
Yep, that's to Director Hash, Interim Director Hash.
Yes, if somebody calls, first of all, we will double check with the homeowner. The other one, before we apply any chemicals, we will post in the location and tell them when we are planning to come here and apply some chemicals for weed control. Of course, they have all the time to call us and opt out. So we were not just going to go there to do it. With plenty of notice, I've realized that this is a very sensitive issue in the city, and a lot of people are careful about the environment, as we are. So we were going to post it. We deal with people, we call people, verify it before we go ahead and apply anything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This motion is really just to talk about an interlocal agreement with another government agency. It wasn't talking about our own policies, but I do appreciate the discussion. So is there a motion?
I'd like to make the motion.
Please, Councilmember Lant.
I move to authorize the interim city manager to execute an interlocal agreement with Kitsap County for noxious weed control.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Lant and seconded by Councilmember Nelson to move consent item number 5E. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And Councilmember Matthews also says aye. That is 6-0. The chair votes aye, 7-0. Let's move to item number 5F. Councilmember Nelson, you pulled that?
Yeah, so I pulled this because I have some concerns about it. While I like the project itself, I'm noticing that there was only one bid by Nordland Construction. That bid is $115,000 over the engineering estimate, and it involves an $86,000 budget increase. And so if we're being fiscally conservative and watching our money, I am going to ask the interim public works director to come back so I can ask him a question if that's acceptable.
Him or interim city manager?
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson, and our city engineer, Peter Corrales, will, I think, be able to address this. But just to set the stage a little bit, this is a project that is in our capital improvement program. It's been approved by council and selected for a variety of community reasons, including safety and accessibility. We do come back to you when we need a budget increase before we spend the money. And so that's what is happening here today after this project was bid in compliance with Public Works law. But I'll turn that, if you have questions for Peter, I'm sure he can help you.
Thank you, interim city manager. Floor is yours.
Yeah, good evening, Peter Corrales, city engineer. I'm here for any questions you have on the topic.
Yeah.
So Councilmember Nelson had that question. You want to redirect it?
Yeah, so my specific question is how do you come up with the engineering estimates? Are you benchmarking those across the market to figure out what's normally charged for that service? Because what I'm trying to get at is how concerned should I be by the bid being $115,000 over the estimate?
Yes, so this particular design and estimate was generated by in-house engineering staff. Our typical procedure for generating engineers' estimates is to look at our files for historical bids that we received. Many road projects will have multiple bidders, and so we'll be able to look at all of the unit costs. We also rely on WashDOT's unit bid analysis, which is an online database statewide where we can see what contractors are bidding for standard products on the list, like hot mixed asphalt, for example.
Councilmember Nelson, a follow-up?
No, that's extremely helpful. I mean, what that tells me is that these are very reasoned estimates. And so I do have concerns about it being this far over. And I actually am not going to support it because I think that we should send this out and rebid it, see if we can get more bidders than one. And so I'm not going to support it.
All right, any further questions? Councilmember Lant?
Thank you. I'm just curious, Mr. Corrales. Any idea why there was only one bidder? And if I'm not mistaken, Nordland Construction, they did our water tank as well, right? Is that Nordland?
Norland Construction recently constructed the Bainbridge Island Japanese American Memorial water line extension.
Okay.
The tank contractor is Red Side.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My error. But
Thank you,
any feeling or idea why there was just one bidder for this?
I really couldn't say. I think there were interested contractors that pulled the plans to assemble a bid, but we only received the one. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Lamb. Councilmember Nelson.
I move to direct the interim city manager to direct staff to put this out for another bid.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second? Waiting.
Second.
Councilmember Lant made a second. Motion is on the floor. Further discussion, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Yeah, could we have any more information about, I think, two things. One is the urgency of the project and anything going to the likelihood of doing better next time around. Like this could have been an anomalous moment and there's a reasonable belief we could save some of these funds.
Thank you, Henry Hash again, Interim Public Works Director. If I may, and I haven't been here long enough to be involved with that, but my past experience, why we have only one bidder. We are an island, so difficult for relocation here. This road is a gravel road, is very, very steep. Not every contractor has the right equipment to do the work. And although the project is roughly $5,490,000, it is not that much for a contractor from other cities to move everything to come here. Relocation alone is pretty costly. And if I may, the reason this is before you tonight, originally we wanted to have your next meeting, contractor actually expressed some concern. It's getting cold. This road is very steep and it's gravel. And if we have the rain season starting, going to be very, very difficult.
Thank you, Henry. Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, the motion is to direct the interim city manager to hold this contract and put it out for another bid. Is that summarizing it basically? All right. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thanks.
We have one yay, we have 5 nays, and the chair votes nay, so it fails 6-1 with the only affirmative vote from the motion maker, Councilmember Nelson. So do we have a motion to move this forward? Councilmember
I move
Carolyn
to
Johnson.
authorize the interim city manager to execute a construction contract with Nordland Construction Northwest, Inc. in the amount of $490,087.41 and authorize a related budget amendment in the amount of $86,000 for the Pleasant Beach Drive Extension Project.
Thank you, Councilmember Carolyn Johnson. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Schreider. It has moved by Councilmember Carolyn Johnson to move this contract forward and seconded by Councilmember Schreider. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
A vote from the council is 5-0. The chair votes aye at 6-0. The only negative vote was from Councilmember Nelson. Has passed. Let's move to city manager's report. So we'll move on. Let's move to regular business. Item number 7, we're going to discuss council budget priorities. We scheduled a half hour for this discussion item.
Council, good evening. Ellen Schroer, Interim City Manager, and glad to be with you tonight to take up the next round of our discussion on council's budget priorities and areas of emphasis. This is a useful discussion for staff as we finalize the budget preparation and get ready to bring the budget to you in September. So we'll be using the input that we get from you today to develop that budget. We sent out a couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation at the council meeting and then sent out a long list of over 130 projects, which will show us, which we are working on, and asked you to send back to us votes on which projects you'd like to see or which areas you'd like to see us focus on. I think we have some slides to look at that show the groupings. We had about, well, there were several different Did you get that, Ben, or no? Okay, so if you look in the packet, there is a grid that shows that there were two primary areas that had 6 out of 7 votes: affordable housing and infrastructure. 5 areas, water conservation programming and groundwater management plan, which had 5, and then 4 votes or more of a quorum for road maintenance, implement climate action plan, and sustainable transportation. Today, I'm hoping that we can go through those major groups, hear from you if these areas capture your information that you'd like to see us use for the areas of focus. If there's anything you'd like to reword, and I think we'll get those up on the screen in a minute, and that'll help focus the conversation. The goal of this item is to have a final draft list at this meeting, hear your, based on the feedback that you'll give us, and then we'll bring this back one more time for final approval and to use as the basis, part of our framing for our budget, and then also to update this list you see behind us on the wall.
Thank you, Interim City Manager, and it's on the agenda item 7 or 7A, and it's Council Priorities Matrix for CC 08112026. Yeah.
No, thank you. This, I'll just look at this slide and then the next one. The topic areas, these topic areas all had more than a quorum of your votes. And if we go to the next slide, there were a number of other topic areas that you identified. These had 3 or fewer votes. So I think at this time we can happy to turn it over to you to see if this first slide captures accurately what you'd like to see, or if you'd like to have a conversation about making any changes or additions.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Would you please go back to the first slide? There we are. So these are the ones that had a majority of votes, at least 4 or more. All right, very good. Okay, let's start our discussion from there. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to just make a couple of preliminary comments. The first was, I think we went through a similar situation last time we did this exercise where there was some potential confusion as to whether we were aiming to choose 7 projects or we were aiming to figure out at this stage what our focuses are, right? Like what our core, where we want to spend budget money. And I think we need to get on the same page about that, first of all. As last time when we were given a whole range of projects, some of the projects were things that were almost done. It wouldn't take many resources, and others were gigantic, and some were mandatory, and some were, and then if we're mixing up the conversation about the general areas. So I hope that what we're doing, at least at this point, is that we're agreeing that we're seeing if we can at first get on the same page about 7 areas of policy where we want to spend money. That's my recommendation. I think we did that last time. Ultimately, we're going to make decisions in the budget about which particular projects we prioritize. And then the last thing I'm going to say, because I got to learn that I shouldn't wait to talk the next time. It could be 7 people later. I want to say I think it's a very big mistake that the 7 that we're starting off at the top do not include implementation of the comprehensive plan. I find that concerning, and I think it's probably not because you all don't prioritize that, but because we got kind of distracted by this giant spread of things. We have said this year, a number of important things are going in the parking lot that include not only things we wanted to get to, but we didn't get to in the code. So what I'm talking about is code, doing the code updates. They will not all be done this year. And so areas that, you know, whether it's middle housing, transfer of development rights or whatever, that we put in the parking lot, we told the Planning Commission to put in the parking lot, as well as continue to work on and refine whatever it is that we move forward as our core development policy, et cetera. So I don't think we're quite done. We're going to be done with the comprehensive plan for commerce in the state. But if we're going to do this well, we're going to still be working on it next year. So I'm going to put in a big pitch for that, making its way to the top. I think only Clarence and I put that in there. And I think the Planning Commission would like to see it there too.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Fatley Johnson, followed by Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, just a general comment. Also, I don't believe that we didn't think about the comprehensive plan. I think part of the problem that I saw was not only was it such a large list, you know, there are things that you said that are already happening. You know, why are we even looking at things that are already happening and things that we know are going to happen because we have budget already planned for them? I was equally disappointed as being the only one who said equity was still a priority. And I will be talking about that later on so that I can give you more information on why I think it's important and how we need to proceed from here.
Thank you, Councilmember Franklin Johnson. Councilmember Lamb, followed by Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Scheiber. Just keeping my eyes on red lights down the line here.
Just also clarification that I also did not bother with anything on the list that I knew was happening and going to happen, including the comprehensive. Well, you can shake your head, but that is the way that I perceive the list. If things were in motion going forward and mandated, why would I put it down as one of my 7 choices to do something? So I also want to clarify that our choices that are listed in this agenda packet are in no particular order. They're just topics that we have pulled out as areas, as I really like to say, areas of emphasis, because there are projects and there are concepts and there are subjects, bigger topics. They're not apples and apples. So I don't think we should get too ahead of, I think we're really looking at areas of emphasis, not necessarily, are we going to stop doing the comprehensive plan? That never once entered my mind. I don't think we are allowed to stop implementing the comprehensive plan going forward.
Thank you, Councilmember Lamb, and I forgot to identify Councilmember Ashley Matthews, so if I could put her ahead, I'm sorry. You could speak right now, Councilmember Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. So I agree also. I sort of made the list based on things that we would be doing, but I appreciate we actually got an email from the Planning Commission chair today about the parking lot that really didn't make me think. So if that is needs to be spelled out, I think I had put something like implementing housing action plan and affordable housing, but if we can put the parking lot in there as well. I don't know if it's specifically the comprehensive plan because all of these things, at some point that's going to be done and we're implementing the goals of and policies of the comprehensive plan that are also should be affordable housing and are matched with our housing action plan. So I think that's important. And then on equity, I actually put that, and I don't know if it's something, if it's not one of our 7 things, if it can be something that's up on the wall or up on our sheet that all of these things are done using an equity and a climate lens, because I think that's something that the council has said is important. And so that would be something I would hope we can either vote on or with a show of hands show that those priorities are still important to us. But I was happy to see all of the commonalities that we had. And it really seems like as a council, our priorities were pretty similar. And that was really encouraging to see that we were really moving to work in the same direction. And I was encouraged.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews, and I do apologize for not scaring at the little screen and missing your hand. So thank you for your patience, and thank you, Councilmember Nelson, for allowing that to move forward. Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Schreiber.
Thank you, Mayor. I would first say I actually like this list that's come out. I think I would echo Councilmember Matthews in that it kind of shows this consensus among the council. When I put my priorities, the 7 items I was supposed to select, and by the way, this is very much a rough exercise. It would be very nice to have seen dollar figures next to these things to sort of better assess, because I'm not really sure how much it's going to cost to do some code changes for the comprehensive plan. Could be very expensive. It might not, right? But so I think that when I did mine, I really focused on what the community said. And I looked at the survey, number 1, road maintenance and infrastructure, number 2, water sewer systems, and then groundwater management. That's where I focused. Then 4th was affordable housing, then sustainable transportation. And so you see all of this on here with also the climate action plan, which is fantastic, right? So I actually think this is a pretty good list, and it's funny it came out to 7. It's not a bad starting point, and I'll say that.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Schreiber, then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think what we could look at this process as is a very good first step. And I think I appreciated getting the list from the interim city manager. But it's also hard to try to figure out what's not on the list, right? And so I think that some of us have identified things that were not on the list, and therefore, the list will be better the next time, right? And then in my note, when I submitted mine, I had a bunch of commentary that I'm grateful that didn't get into the final public one, but I can just read a little bit of it here. I said, here are my priorities, as if apples to apples. However, they're not, of course. Some are significant budget commitments, others are significant staff and council time, some are likely both. Also, it seems like we should just eliminate from the list the compliance issues, since we will have to do them anyway. They're non-negotiables, while our priorities are in the discretionary category. I'm throwing that out there not because I'm just saying those are some of the things that were floating through my head, and different things were floating through each of our heads, right? So I think what this discussion can be is, okay, what do we want for the next go round? And I think, this list that's right here in front of us on the slide is comparable to, in weight, is comparable to council priorities that are up there from the 25-26 biennium. So we could be saying, all right, let's as individuals tweak this list, wordsmith it or add to it, subtract from it, whatever. And then also have this list of projects that we're more or less invested in seeing come to pass, right? So just kind of taking the different weights of categories versus projects. And then specifically on the equity and climate lens, I guess maybe I am becoming a little too overconfident that we are establishing our way forward in terms of looking at things always through an equity and a climate lens, but maybe we're not. And in that case, what I guess I would appreciate is having that laid out as a project, like what's missing from our equity lens work. How can we put that into a project so that it's identified and we can then choose to prioritize that as a project? And then in general, what is what are the projects that we're doing or need to do as equity work right now, similarly to projects that we're showing needs to be done in the climate work. So anyway, I just wouldn't want anyone to think that equity lens, climate lens is not important to me. I just feel like we've done a lot of good work in institutionalizing that. And if that's not the case, we should highlight it and attach a project to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Schneider. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos?
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments. One, I appreciate what Councilmember Fantroy Johnson said right after me, and I wish I'd said what I was going to say before you said that about equity, which was, I hoped we could agree that, as I feel we did last time, although it did also make it up here, but that is something that we assume for. It's exactly what Councilmember Matthews said, that when we can add that language in, that we assume there's an equity and a climate lens for anything we do in this city. So that was on my mind when I was doing this, but I do want to answer the question, and I will really want to hear from the city manager actually after I make this postulation as to why I think that we should be talking about things like the parking lot issues for the comprehensive plan. So first of all, for that particular thing, in fact, most of those things are not going to be mandated. So even if we say that all we should be talking about are our discretionary programs, that would fall into that. We're going to be pretty well past the mandatory stuff after that. And I will put this in a second. I can't think about that. Sorry. I mean, you guys are going to make me take longer. So first of all, there's that. And staff needs to hear from us that is something we want to do, that we're serious about it. The second thing is that I don't believe we are just, and this is what I want to hear from the city manager. that this is just an exercise to prioritize the discretionary spending. We actually have very little discretionary funds as it is, but we also can choose to emphasize, the things that we look at as core, for example, which is something we heard a lot about. We can put more money towards core services, right? And those are things that we are supposed to be delivering, arguably. So I think there's that. And I also think that at the end of the day, this is an exercise to tell the staff where to put the labor and where to put the money. And so there's some things that we absolutely have to do, but there's a whole zone in between, I believe, what the state tells us we have to do and what we just would love to do, but we really don't have the money for, but we'd like to figure it out. There's a bunch of in the middle that might not be as sexy as that side of it. And that's part of this. And to me, part of that is things like code updates. And I think I wanted to say one more thing. Sorry about that. One, I wanted to clarify, it's important to me. I'm sorry, I don't want to be negative, but I feel like the way it was characterized, it looks like I'm actually supporting the 625 project the way it is right now. And that's a simplification of my statement, which was to address the issues surrounding the 625 project. That can go in many different ways. But I thought it was important to call it out because I can't just sit here stagnantly while we're just not even talking about it. So I felt a little uncomfortable looking like that was just a vote for 625 as is. And the last thing I wanted to say, because I don't want to have to say anything again, was I think it would be nice if we each got a chance at some point to talk about the things that, like the Councilmember Schneider was talking about, that occurred to us that weren't in the list, whether it's here or at a retreat. And I hope that at a retreat, if we can do that, we can get into the sort of ranking of projects and deeper discussion that I just don't think we're going to be able to do here. So I'm interested in hearing the city managers, if it's, or you guys, her philosophy about, or her idea of why they need this information, and also where we would take the conversation about projects.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hightop. For a time check, we got about 9 minutes left. We can continue at that point. Councilmember Frontline Johnson, then Councilmember Nelson, and then Councilmember Scheider.
Thank you. I just passed out some information around the what I feel is going to be the next project for diversity and equity. No, it's 2 pages apiece, right? And it was in the agenda, but I had it taken out because it listed some names that are already interested in this specific project. And I didn't want to publicize the people who are already in this project or wanting to be in this project. So while I was out of work, I had time on my hands and I took a diversity class, which was put on by an ISO group. ISO is an information standards organization, and they certify everything from quality management to information security to environment management to health and safety. And so I'm going to read this into the record so everybody can see what I took out. Equity Climate Diagnostic, Enhancing Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In light of recent discussions relating to DEI, there is an opportunity for the City of Bainbridge Island to take a significant step forward in our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am asking that equity remain a priority for the next planning years. The coming years will give Bainbridge the opportunity to review and diagnose its current program and allow the city to develop a plan, do, check system of continuous improvement. In collaboration with Inclusion Score, Inc., a leader in workforce service management, we will develop a comprehensive plan to implement a series of strategic initiatives aimed at enhancing our reach and operational efficiency. The process outlines a two-phased approach. The first is a diagnostic phase. Utilizing ISO standard 30415 workflow assessment, we will identify current gaps and opportunities in our diversity and inclusion practices. This phase includes 80 hours of consulting, access to expert D&I advisors, and preparation for ISO 30415 certification. Bainbridge will be included in a cohort for the Pacific Northwest that includes other cities and elected officials. This cohort will train and certify identified individuals who will become owners of their own process and will continuously work to improve it. Number 2 is the implementation phase. Drawing on diagnostic insights, we will roll out targeted initiatives, including standardized processes, feedback mechanisms, and maturity level identification, leading to DEI improvements. These efforts are designed to standardize and enhance our practices across the board. The benefits of this initiative is building inclusivity, reduces risk. The council has instituted a DEI policy, and this initiative will empower the city of Bainbridge with practical tools, frameworks, and accountability measures. It supports the development of inclusion systems that create long-term value for all people while fulfilling U.S. federal and state legal duties and ethical responsibilities. Achieving the certification will not only ensure compliance with emerging regulations, but also position us as a leader in diversity and inclusion, enhancing our public image and stakeholder confidence. Operational efficiency, standardizing processes will improve efficiency and consistency in how services, which are our trainings, workshops, surveys, are delivered, ultimately benefiting our community and stakeholders. This will allow us to identify the community members who will benefit the most from our services. Attracting talent. A strong commitment to diversity and inclusion increases our attractiveness as an employer, helping us to attract a diverse pool of talented candidates. Cost consideration. The total cost for these services outlined is estimated at $138,200, covering both phases of the project. This investigation includes all consulting fees, access to proprietary software, and necessary training and certification costs. Considering the long-term benefits and potential cost savings from reduced turnover and enhanced operational efficiency, we believe this is a prudent and necessary investment. Conclusion. We are at a pivotal moment to affirm our commitment to diversity and inclusion. By continuing to prioritize equity and approving the funding for this initiative, we can lead by example and set a benchmark for municipal operations across the region. I am confident that with your support, we can make a meaningful impact that aligns with our values and strategic objectives. Sorry that took so long, but I wanted to read it into the record. And I know that we're going to have more conversations about projects. And I'm fine with equity and, the equity lens being used for all of our projects. What this does is it gives us a plan outlining how to do that, because we don't know how to do that. We were supposed to get that from GARE. We never got it. What we have is an equity lens, a toolkit that helps us. This will help us to develop that into a full process. So there will be no more stones thrown against diversity. It's backed by ISO. And if you don't know ISO, then you don't know. I don't know how that should, something like that. I'm done.
Further?
I don't want to mess it up.
Thank you, thank you, Councilmember Fentler Johnson. Now, just comment on that. ISO is a lot of things. It's the industry standard. So when you look at batteries or seat belts, they certify this is a standard of which all batteries will meet this. So it is an international organization. You have to get their meet incredible standards. So thank you. It's a very important international organization. Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Schneider.
Yeah, no, I think what I wanted to say is simply that what we were given was a list, and it was like, choose your pet projects to spend money. And I guess you can see it in my list. I took a little bit of an issue with this because one of the choices was not spend money, right? There was no, how about we don't spend money? How about we, right? And so that was something I put on there, which is don't raise taxes unless absolutely necessary, right? Actually live within our means. So that's something I just want to put out there. I also want to say on the affordable housing, on the matrix, a couple thoughts. And I think this is a question for the interim city manager. When folks chose 625 Winslow Way, what exactly would the budget impact be for 27, 28? Didn't we already pledge that money? Is there some other costs involved to 625 at this point? And then I have one other thought.
Interim City Manager, you wish to address that question?
I am happy to address that question and also note that Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos had a couple of points she wanted me to raise. So I don't know if you want me to do that now or come back later. Do both of them now?
Let's do that.
Okay, so Ben, if you don't mind paging forward a couple of to the next one here. Okay, thanks. So first of all, I fully acknowledge that the list that we sent to council was so long and so apples and oranges and kangaroos and, you know, like spark plugs, right? Like, please choose which one you prefer. And also, so thank you for sorting through them. Thank you also for adding ones where you felt like something you wanted to highlight wasn't there. And thank you also, Deputy Mayor, for asking, like, what are we doing with this, right? The city staff is working now to develop a budget that meets the council's priorities and also starts to address level of service, because there's a lot of different ways you can do anything, right? Like, you can spend a whole lot of money on road maintenance, you can spend a ton of money on road maintenance, you can spend a little bit of money on road maintenance, and it still fits into road maintenance. So that's part of what we're doing, is trying to understand the level of service or the level of emphasis that you're looking to see. I will also note that there may be some where we need your help to refine exactly your intention. So if we misrepresented what you meant when we combined these and consolidated them, I certainly want you to know that that wasn't our intent, and we are happy to refine and revise this. I asked the IT staff to put this up on the board because it shows that we took the liberty of grouping different projects that were mentioned by different council members. And so you can see that in these bullet points that are also then shown in your packet, you can see that many people had a different way of talking about affordable housing or wastewater treatment plant. And we can go through, or water conservation, groundwater management plan. And that information is in the packet and is sort of the match of the project to the area. And so, as Councilmember Schneider was talking about, we're talking about areas, but we're also talking about projects. In terms of how much money does this mean we would be spending, I don't think that is exactly what we were talking about on any particular project, but just that it's a level of effort, it's a level of priority. It's something that we want to continue to dedicate staff time to. I have said many times the single most valuable thing the city has is staff time, because it's such a limited resource. And we need to have time to spend money well. And if you tell us that something is a priority for you, then that is where we put our time. And that is when we bring you the information that we hope you'll use to make decisions and give us further direction.
Thank you, Interim City Manager. It's a perfect segue. We've spent 33 minutes on this, of which we scheduled 30. So to be efficient on time, I would suggest we may add 10 more minutes for discussion. So who is next in line? Councilmember Scheid. I think Councilmember Schreider was next up, and then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
If Councilmember Nelson, I think you needed to finish up. Is that right?
Yeah.
Please.
So the first thought, I didn't get an answer as far as the 65. What's the sort of budget impact of that for 27, 28?
Well, by putting this on the list, you're not changing the budget. The city council has already approved an agreement that has a certain amount of city spending and then other spending that's included. So you wouldn't be changing the budget. You're just telling us that you'd like us to continue working on it and indicating, I think, overall that the council continues to support the project and to want city staff to invest time on working with it and bringing it back to you for additional work.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Councilmember Schreider, then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. These are two pretty small points. One is just a correction that for the zero emissions landscaping hand tools, my name was not listed on that specific one, and that was one of my top 7. So I just wanted to show support. And then going back to my previous comment about discretionary versus compliance, I didn't mean so, so I live in co-housing, we have to do a budget every year, and there's the things you have to pay for, like insurance, and then there's what's left over, and so by discretionary, I think it's versus compliance. So the word compliance was used quite a few times in the list. And so maybe it's irrelevant, maybe no one picked those compliance issues, but not compliance like get the comp plan done, but they were other issues, and I was just thinking, yeah, no, I don't think any of us are going to be picking that one. So just maybe pruning some of the things. And of course, now you have feedback from us, so you could prune a lot more than just the compliance issues. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Scheider. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Nelson.
Well, I hope I'm not being self-indulgent, but I do want to say aloud 2 items that I had that didn't make it, that didn't come from the list. Because I think we're sharing some things that we want to see that go beyond that. And one of them was of my 7 was invest in core municipal services, and that tends to mean roads. But the other one was strengthen public process and governance. And that can take whatever we put into it. It doesn't have to be a lot of staff effort, it can be much more our effort. And one of the specifics under there that was very important is to conduct a post-project review of the comprehensive plan update process and develop strategies for 2024. And that is a more positive way of saying what I was usually going to have, which is a post-mortem, and just really figure out how we can avoid what happened this time in 2034.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Frentley Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We could do a postmortem on the comp plan and also head of the bay, but that's not my comment. I would say I'm happy to see a lot of the projects that I'm interested in on the list, including the wastewater treatment plant capacity upgrades, specifically wastewater beneficial reuse. I was glad to see a majority supporting that. Water conservation, implementing the groundwater management plan, and then road maintenance. I think those are very sort of core governmental functions. Back to basics. I think it's really important we focus on that. And then the last thing I'll say is that with the deputy mayor's clarifying comment about her view on 625 Winslow Way, I am going to note that it's not a majority of council members who have that listed, and I don't know if that changes anything, and I'll just leave it there.
No, thank you. And again, my apologies to our online member, Councilmember Ashley Matthews. If it's okay with the Councilmember Fentley Johnson, will allow Councilmember Matthews to have this floor.
Thanks, Mayor. That's okay. It's the problem of being online. I wouldn't choose to, so I'd rather be with you all. I just wanted to take a second just to follow up with Deputy Mayor's comment of plugging one of her things. And I just wanted to say that even though it's not on the list that all 7 of us didn't choose this, that maybe this would be something we would do through our retreat is it was really interesting to see the results of this survey, which was just sort of weren't a ton of responses, but it gave a good idea of what certain community members were thinking about. But I do think at some point it would be really, really beneficial to actually go out and do a larger scale community survey. If that was something that we could make happen. And then just some other community facing things that we, to really figure out how to get youth involved in government. So those things were they weren't on our list and I didn't see other support for them, but hopefully we can figure out a way someday to make them happen.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Councilmember Fentley Johnson.
And I know other things that we don't have on our list, we will probably get from the public, which is good. We need to know what everybody's thinking. But I guess, people are going to be disappointed. I already have one email, somebody's disappointed. I didn't see the parking lot stuff. So that's why I didn't put anything from the parking lot there. I just want that out in the public. It wasn't like I ignored it. We didn't see the parking lot. So maybe we'll get that before the retreat.
Thank you, Councilmember Fentley Johnson. Councilmember Land.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate that so many of the things that we've talked about over the last several months, there's an assumption that that work is going forward, that these parking lot topics, the park overlay or the park zoning or all the different flavors of housing and everything else in the parking lot, they're all going to come back because either at the end of this year or next year through the planning commission to work through this. That was an assumption on my part. If that was incorrect, I'd love to know. But again, some of these things that we're talking about seem to be some internal staffing work that should be happening, whether council says we want you to or not. Like there's an assumption that the comp plan process will be looked at so it can be tighter and more efficient. You don't need our authority to say, please look at the process, right? I know you know that. So that again is not something that I felt I needed to say because we talked about the importance of all these things and to do better work, those things are being considered right now as we speak. I'm positive about that. So again, there's a lot of things on here that I just assumed are happening behind the scenes. Yes, they take staff time to do, but it's part of tightening their own processes as well. So.
Thank you, Councilor Lamb. We have about 2.5 minutes left. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I just have to ask the interim city manager, whether in fact staff has been planning on taking a look at the comprehensive plan process and what went wrong and what we're going to do about it. I'm not expecting that without our request, that's something that is just going to happen.
I would say that staff shares council's frustration with the length of time that is taken, and we definitely internally are committed to looking at projects that we're working on. And I think that I'm hearing clearly that you'd like to have a more public discussion about that. We're certainly talking about it internally, and also about the Head of the Bay project and other projects where we've heard from the community that the communication wasn't quite as smooth as we might have wanted it to, or the project that as it was scoped and delivered, maybe didn't quite match with what people were expecting on the first go around. So heard, definitely. One thing I will say that would be beneficial for me is to know if you'd like to talk about this again, and if so, when. We do have an item scheduled for next week's meeting to discuss the priority for the Planning Commission deferred items or the quote unquote parking lot or post-adoption list. However you'd like to talk about it, so we can certainly fold additional conversation about these topics in with that, or if you'd like to have them completely separate, we can set time at a future business meeting. So I'll listen for your motion about when you'd like to talk about this again, or if you'd like to make any motions before we conclude this conversation, that would be helpful.
Thank you, interim city manager, and we're about out of time, so can we extend another 5 minutes? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
So what is the deliverable that's requested from the city manager from this ultimately? So we know, and also even if it differs, what do we want if we want something out of this more than just, oh, that was interesting?
Right. Thank you for clarifying that, because that it is helpful to have a shared goal so that we can get there together. We started this conversation in an effort to respond to what we'd heard a number of times from the dais, which is that you'd like to express your priorities in some ways to replace the list that's up on the wall, but also I think most importantly to give staff guidance about how you'd like us to approach the budget, how we should be prioritizing. And we all want to acknowledge that we haven't had a chance to have a retreat, which is really where typically we would have this kind of conversation. But we will have a new city manager in September, and I think that that will be among the first orders of business for you and the new city manager. Until that time, I would appreciate council guidance on whether you'd like to leave those priorities and areas of emphasis as they stand, or if you'd like to craft one of your own. And if so, are the 7 items that we started with or arrived at through this conversation a good place to start? Do you want to make some additional changes to those? And if so, we can schedule time on a future meeting and have that conversation.
Thank you. You want to continue? Okay, well, 3.5 minutes. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Fallow Johnson.
Well, now that I know what we're talking about, I don't know that we can do a lot more until we hopefully have some sort of a retreat, if the new city manager can accommodate that. I echo what I heard here, which is we've really got a great start, and I could endorse this if we somehow incorporate, and I think we have 8 up there, if we somehow incorporate something to overtly address what was brought up by the Planning Commission chair, which I agree with, which is that I think we should show commitment to the implementation, the code updates needed to do the big stuff that we've just done. In which case I could endorse this as our high priorities, but that's where I stand.
Councilmember, thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Brantley Johnson.
You know, I can endorse it too if we would lay out how we feel about the equity lens being an underlying process for all of our priorities. And then what I don't understand is why did we only pick only 7 and not 8? Equity could have been 8. I
It
would
just
have been-
worked out that way. This number, 7, and Ben, would you mind putting that other list back up? It just worked out that way, that those were the areas that had more than 4 votes. It could have been 6, it could have been 10. I certainly don't think there's anything magic to the number 7. We picked that as just kind of a good place to start, and certainly happy to add a couple or refine a couple of these, however you'd like to see it.
Thank you, Manager. Councilmember Nelson, we have 2 minutes.
I move to endorse the council priorities as presented on the screen.
Is there a second?
I'll second with some comment.
Okay, now we're at second, and the motion is before us. And now with like the last minute and a half, I'd like to at least speak to this. I looked at 45 minutes, so it's an average of all of you having at least 7 or 8 minutes each. So I'm going to be very succinct. Okay, we've talked about it a lot. I think this is sensible. The fact that 4 of us or more chose all of these already shows that we have a majority on each of these issues. So that in itself says something about the majority of view of the council. That's just this really simple vote counting. And it just happened to be 7. So I'm not saying that they can't add something else, but maybe that's a future discussion that we can have. But this is clearly the will of the majority of us. Just by a blind poll, none of us talk to each other. So that's how I read it. And to Councilmember Brantley Johnson, I so appreciate your passion about this. And your proposal strikes me more as a future budget item. It's very specific. It's not a broad council priority. I think we are all committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as climate and sustainable transportation. I think we all share those visions, or else I don't think we'd be elected up here. So I believe we have that sense. And so your proposal is really good, but it's very specific. And I'm just a little concerned that there's already a perhaps consultant considered. So I think that would be something that maybe in the future, see if that's the appropriate way, or perhaps maybe with this guidance, our own diversity and inclusion officer might be able to manage this with just maybe a little help. I'm not sure, but I just want to say that it's not a kind of a priority. These are very broad issues that we see before us, the 7 names. So that's simply what I said, and I ran out of my own time. So there we are. Anybody else have a discussion? Councilmember. Okay, let me turn off my timer. Councilmember Scheider, and then Councilmember Brantley Johnson, then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Oh wait, sorry, Ashley, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna put her ahead because she's been so patient with us. If the rest of the body does not mind, so Councilmember Ashley Matthews, please go forward.
Thanks, Mayor. We have a motion made. I was wondering if there was any appetite for a friendly amendment, just to add that specific call out that Deputy Mayor was referring to, and actually putting down in writing the equity and climate lens.
It's already up there.
And the friendly amendment, any comments?
I'll second.
Councilmember Scheider, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Councilmember Scheider, you seconded that?
I was seconding the
Okay,
friendly
very good.
amendment.
All right. Any other further discussion on this friendly amendment? And so how would it be written? That all of this would be viewed through the equity and climate lens or something like that? We have a commitment to do that or something like that? Okay, let's slow this down. Okay, Councilmember Scheider still had the floor.
Thank you. So I seconded it for us to move forward on both this and the friendly amendment. I am still feeling a little bit like I'd like to give this a bit of thought. You know, to look at what's missing and then secondarily to say, okay, and we haven't had the discussion yet on the projects, right? So I didn't really respond to the homework with the assumption about coming up with 7 at the high level like this, because we had a lot of projects that we were being asked to respond to. So I guess, I guess that's saying I'm going to vote against confirming it right now because I just want a chance to think about it. This is a great list. I love this list. And
So I'm missing the order. So I believe it was Councilmember Brentwood Johnson, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, and then Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to see either as a byline or something that includes the equity being a part of the overall process for all of these. Climate is already up there. Transportation is already up there. So saying that we're going to look at it with those lenses, with the climate lens, it's already in there. But it's not in there for equity. And I do agree that we haven't had enough time to think about the projects. So I think this is a great list. And you're right, we all agree to this list. I agree to this list, but there's just more I think that needs to be done before we vote and solidify this is our list without looking at what is missing. We don't know.
Thank you, Councilmember Brentwood Johnson, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Nelson.
Two things. One, as soon as I started hearing Councilmember Schneider talking, I was thinking, yeah, it's fair. It's only fair to the public for us to have reached this level that we're at right now and let this like sit and hear feedback. So it would be, as much as anyway, I think, yes. So I think it's a great idea. Let's put this off to another agenda. And maybe with this, and it'll take some wordsmithing to think about like what would be a nice maybe closure to like a list that basically says, and all of the above is through an equity lens. So, I mean, that needs a little work too. So it seems to have made a lot of progress and I endorse not moving it forward today.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, Councilmember Nelson.
So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to withdraw my motion and make a different motion, which is I move I move to endorse this list as a strong tentative list for consideration at a future business meeting. How about that?
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Nelson has moved and Councilmember Land has seconded to endorse a very strong list, I guess. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I just hate to lose Councilmember Schneider's vote to try to amend it now. So hopefully we are also agreeing that we've got more work to do in these two additions we're talking about. So we're not suggesting that we're thinking we're adopting it without addressing this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Yes, I think with the last minute left, I already put an automatic 5 minutes to it. That I think that's fairly clearly implied in our discussion and our feelings that is something that we really want to address. Councilmember Brentwood Johnson has made a strong case for that. So the motion is to take these because all of these 7 had at least 4 members. So clearly a majority of the council liked all of these. And so it's to move to a forward meeting for discussion. So that is the motion before us. Am I clear? Very good. All right. Okay. So any further discussion after 55 minutes? All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. And I would like to just call for a 5-minute recess because it's been a little bit long and I think we just need to have a stretch our legs for a second. So without any objection, thank you. The council's return from recess. Now we move to item 7B on our agenda, discuss response to the Department of Commerce relating to extension request for Housing Accountability Act correction period. Interim City Manager, please.
Thank you, Council. This next item is a part of the city's response to the Department of Commerce Housing Accountability Act audit. This process began in January with the city's selection as one of the jurisdictions to participate in the audit. This is looking at the information in our housing and land use part of our comprehensive plan. We have been in process since January, exchanging information with Commerce a number of times, and Commerce staff have attended both staff and public meetings. Most recently here in July, we had held a joint public hearing with the Department of Commerce. As one part of this process, we were given a 120-day deadline for submittal of corrective information as part of the information that they were asking for. We requested an extension of 120 days of that deadline, which was not granted. So that means that the city owes Commerce some information by the 21st of August. As part of their response, that Commerce offered the city a couple of different options. One, that we can adopt interim development regulations and submit those by August 26th. That allows sufficient land capacity to meet our allocated housing needs based on the comprehensive plan and provide a supporting land capacity analysis. These development regulations would also need to implement the adequate provisions outlined in the relevant checklists. If the city chooses not to do that or is not able to do that, we will notify Commerce that we will not meet their deadline, and they have let us know that they will consider us to be non-compliant and the builder's remedy would occur. This item would be implemented on Bainbridge Island. I will note that this is a provision of the law that has not yet been used in the state of Washington, so we continue to work with Commerce to understand exactly what that would mean. We are here today to ask you for your guidance if you would like staff to work on interim development regulations in compliance with Commerce's guidance, or if you'd like us to take another path. Thank you. Oh, and I'll also note that we have our planning manager here to support your discussion, and our interim planning director is also on Zoom, and I think we'll be able to join the meeting to support your discussion and take any questions.
Thank you, City Manager, for that very comprehensive summary. We have about 26 minutes. So Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I guess what I would like to do is first have us break this into two parts. One, addressing the appetite for doing what we need to do, and then what do we do to have that space available to do the work. And then I definitely would like to talk about what that work is, because I think that could be where we spend most of our time talking. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, I support the Deputy Mayor's point here, which is first, we're dealing with what we do in the interim, but there's also what work needs to be done to complete the actual plan. And there I'm really talking about the land capacity analysis, the extent to which that includes mandatory inclusionary zoning, so that we as a body have the information to make a good decision on the final plan. And so I agree with the Deputy Mayor's approach.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Members, further comments? Is there any? Oh, there you go. Hi. I just saw your hand go up. Councilmember Matthews.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Mayor. So I agree with that way forward. So I was wondering, how do we do that? Do we make a motion for the first part and then work on the second? Okay, well then I will make a motion.
Thank you.
I move to direct the interim city manager to direct staff to continue to pursue an extension of the Housing Accountability Act's 120-day correction period as outlined in the Department of Commerce's August 5th, 2026 letter by submitting draft development regulations submitted to Commerce for 60-day review and including mandatory inclusionary zoning as discussed by the Planning Commission on July 23rd by August 12th, 2026, and then scheduling consideration of those regulations for adoption on an interim basis for the August 25th, 2026 regular business meeting.
Thank you,
Second.
Councilmember Matthews. Is there a second?
Second.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos is second. There's been moved and seconded as the motion stated by Councilmember Matthews. Discussion, Councilmember Nelson.
I'm gonna say a couple things, which is that I don't support the overall motion because I don't support this direction. I actually think we should go a different way, and I really wouldn't mind a court weighing in as to the extent to which the builder's remedy applies to Bainbridge Island, because I'm quite certain that we're exempt because the entire island is a critical area. That said, I really want to throw in my strong support for the fact that in addition to doing the baseline that Commerce is asking for here, we have layered on top of it the mandatory inclusionary zoning that was recently recommended by the Planning Commission. That I very much support. And I just want to put that on the record. So I will be voting no primarily because I don't support the market rate up zoning that's included in this interim development regulations, because this is the February LCA, right? This is the 1.0 base FAR. I don't support that, but because of the mandatory inclusionary zoning, I just want to give a nod to that, okay? So those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I'm going to be voting for this, even though I do not support it as is and think the additional work is needed, which is why we're doing this. And essential to this, to endorsing this approach, is layering on the inclusionary zoning, the mandatory inclusionary zoning, so that if anything comes through during this period, that there will be that component. I gave a lot of thought to whether the builder's remedy would be good enough, because I mean, none of us up here have a problem with what it says, other than we don't understand. Ultimately, we're not going to know what these barriers are. It's not clear. We can't use it. The goals, I think we would all agree with. So I certainly gave that thought. But I think that the best we can do and the options that have been given to us at this time to secure the time to do what we should talk about next, which is try to get more information to make the best vote in the long run we can make. This is the smoothest path that will be most understandable to the community and get us there faster than the litigation that honestly I would prefer we could have taken up a long time ago, but that's not the game we're playing. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. I also support the motion. I think, again, given the hand that we've been dealt, that this is probably the best way going forward in a timeline that works best for our community. Our community gets to see that we're actually trying to do something that preserves the inclusionary housing, as well as try to meet the provisions that Commerce has laid down. I do think it would feel awfully good to go the litigation route myself. I think it would cost a lot of money. I don't know at the long run if we're having a hard time about $100,000 here and there, that adding litigation money on top of it's going to make all of us feel a lot better. It'll make us feel better, but we'll all be paying for it. So I am going to be voting yes for this.
Thank you, Councilmember Land. Councilmember Matthews, then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos.
I just wanted to, just a quick note on the litigation route. It's an unknown, as is the builder's remedy. I think the cost is the unknown, but also for me, it really came down to the Planning Commission. If we had been decided, if we were going to go the litigation route, it's probably something we could have done almost 2 years ago and saved these volunteers in our community a whole lot of work. So that just weighed heavily on my thoughts. Was just, it is obviously a very expensive litigation and the unknown, but also the amount of time that's already gone into this. That was a decision I think we could have made in the beginning of the process.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Scheider.
Yeah, one more comment, and it actually, quite ironically, was raised at public comment by one of our public commenters, and that is that I think that, I know my support for this action we're taking is hinged so much on the acceptance of the inclusionary zoning as a layer on top of that, that were Commerce to come back and say, no, you can't do that for whatever reason, we just want it unadulterated as it was submitted previously without that new program. I hope that we will actually come back and consider other action. I just want to be clear, it's really critical that go with this program. So hopefully that's not the case. We do want to play ball with Commerce at this point, but we'll see.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Councilmember Scheider, then Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Deputy Mayor kind of said what I'm going to say, but I just want to be really clear that what I believe is true about what we're doing right now is that Commerce has said that if we do the first part of what is in this motion, then we will be in compliance. And then what we are doing separate, in addition to that, is we're adding the mandatory inclusionary zoning. So in my mind, Commerce would not be able to go against a mandatory inclusionary zoning because this whole spirit of this is to create affordable housing. And if they did go against it for whatever reason, you know, then I think we probably have some pushback to do. But until then, I really don't want to push back. I want to be working with Commerce and getting this done.
Thank you, Councilmember Scheider. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating test case because if Commerce does come back and say, no, you need to remove the mandatory inclusionary zoning, you need to make this exactly what we said. I mean, that would be an outrageous response because that would just prove to all of us that this was never about affordable housing, right? Which some of us believe, right? So my hope is that they will accept this and say, yes, that's a great addition to what we told you to do. And I think others on this council are right, that if in fact they do respond that way, perhaps the direction we go needs to be different. So anyway, I will say this is a tough vote for me because I'm on the line as far as wanting to support it because of what we're doing here. But I think from a principled standpoint, I just don't support the development regulations in the interim development regulations. So I'm not going to support it, but thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Any further comments? Well, I'll just jump in reminding the public that the letter from the Department of Commerce set some very hard dates that we had to adjust to. And one of the dates we had to get an agreement that if we could extend it because our meeting didn't fall on that date, whatever, August 23rd or whatever it was. So they played ball with us there. To others' points, this is really uncharted territory, the Housing Affordability Act. And I think the intent of the legislature was clear. I'm not going to second guess that they don't really care about affordable housing. I think at their core they do, but they're under challenges. And many of you already saw a recent letter from the Association of Washington Cities that is now challenging the Legislature and Growth Management Act, speaking on behalf of some smaller cities like Carnation and others, because this is a law that it isn't one size fit all. And look at the struggle we're doing, and we have professional staff. Carnation's probably got one planner. I mean, seriously. And how can they possibly meet these mandates? And on top of that, these small cities, they don't have a lot of land, they don't have a lot of zoning, and now it can't be one size fits all. I think that's going to be one of the lessons that the legislators and the state's going to look at this law, and that small cities, how is this possible? You can meet these kind of things, and we're struggling. We're a good sized city with very competent professional staff we make them stay too late at night here. So I just want to say that I think we're doing the right path. I think this is the right call for our city and moving this thing forward. And I want to also echo all of my colleagues point to both the staff and the hours that the Planning Commission has sewn into this. They've spent probably 10 times more hours than I have. So I just want to thank all of you on the Planning Commission for all the birthdays you missed and all the meetings you couldn't go to for your kids or whatnot. Let's not forget that, because we get paid. They're volunteers. So let's just also recognize that. And I think we all do. I think we realize that. Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, very specific to the motion. I want to make a friendly amendment because it says the mandatory inclusionary zoning as discussed by the Planning Commission on July 23rd. I would like to amend that to say as recommended by the Planning Commission on July 23rd, because they formally recommended this mandatory inclusionary zoning. So I move to amend the motion to strike discussed and add in recommended.
Second.
Councilmember Nelson moved and Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos seconded. I think it's a very simple edit. I hope there's no discussion. None. All right. I'll call for the question on that edit. All, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Better not be. 6-0 and the chair votes aye. Okay, so now we have before us the amended motion as presented. Any further discussion? I'll call for the question on that. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Vote is
Nay.
Oh, one nay, that's right. So we have five yays. The chair votes aye and Councilmember Nelson votes nay. And so that motion is passed. Move forward. Thank you very much, Council, and for the very good deliberation that we've had on this. I think it was a good consensus work. Item 7, wait,
Nope.
no, wait, we got
part 2.
oh, part 2. Oh, there is. Okay. Who's got it?
Okay.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Hightower.
We need to talk about if we're all on the same page as to what is being done during the time we're trying to buy ourselves. And I have a real concern. And so we're probably going to need some briefing from staff. But what I'm understanding is we've been getting pushback, even though the Planning Commission went back and changed the trigger for the mandatory inclusionary zoning from lot size to number of units built, that we are still getting pushback from L&M, and I don't know if they work with the subsidiary or not on this to do the work, but that this is somehow mystifying to them, and they're not experienced with mandatory inclusionary zoning, and they don't know how to do a capacity analysis on that. Now, I mean, I may be being I may be exaggerating, so in a second, I'd be happy to hear again from staff what that looks like. I think we were under the impression that perhaps this is something unusual for Washington, and they're not familiar with it. And in fact, while I've been sitting up here, I pulled up several pieces of code from Washington. I pulled up Redmond's 21.20060, mandatory inclusionary zoning, Bothell 1264-100, mandatory inclusionary zoning, Issaquah 1851C514060. That was pretty easy for me to find. These look, I haven't looked carefully at all at what the Planning Commission did, but these are triggered by things like 10 or more units. In fact, 2 of these are 10 or more units and then require a percentage of mandatory inclusionary housing. Actually, these are pretty cool because some of these do way better than we're doing as far as how deeply affordable and how few, even some of them, one of them has a below 7 units where they require. So this surprised me. I'm not a planner, but I've understood, I think, mandatory inclusionary zoning for 10 plus years. It's a thing we've talked about forever. We've talked going into this in particular, this update, that if we were going to upzone Winslow or anywhere, that'll be one good thing about that will be we could get our mandatory inclusionary zoning because we are giving a benefit to the landowner so we can extract the inclusionary zoning. We had Econ Northwest come to us years ago. I don't know when that was, 2020, 2021. Pushing for huge upzoning to get the mandatory inclusionary zoning, as I understood it, to get the affordable housing. I've understood this is what PSRC wants us to do, what everybody talks about as one of the main tools for getting units. In fact, what we fought against from the beginning, I feel like some of us on Planning Commission and here has been the assumption that the solution is inclusionary zoning. And here we are being told by the entity that we've been working with for the land capacity analysis, oh, no, it'd be so hard for us to figure out. It's going to take us 8-12 weeks or something like that. So this is my number one ask is that if that's the tact that L&M is going to take. And at this point, based on that, many other things that they've done, I honestly believe that they are partisan in this debate and they are undermining our efforts to do this work. I want us to find an alternative. I just thought, and this is very light and who knows, and staff may have the answer already, but I thought, yeah, I'm going to look up and see if Econ Northwest does this. After all, they came here to tell us to do this, again, years ago. And a quick search suggests that they do capacity analyses for cities. So is there an entity that can do a capacity analysis for us, trying to help us understand what are we really accomplishing here with this mandatory inclusionary zoning, as well as our other questions that we already had going forward, in the time frame that we're looking at.
Correct.
And my guess is it's got to be possible. I mean, didn't even start in on how California has many jurisdictions as well with mandatory inclusionary zoning.
Sure.
So that's my big request. And the last thing I'm going to say, I would love to think I'm not going to talk again, is that I am going to continue to ask for, and I don't know if we're ever going to get it, but I know I have colleagues who want it as well. I still want to know how many units we are estimated to have zoned for. Not just how many affordable units we're going to get, but when all is said and done, when this capacity analysis is done, not just what the algorithm tells the particular analyzer we're likely to have happen in the 20 years that are coming, but how many actual additional units do we create? Granted, it's an estimate for the landowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I believe that might be a good item for a future discussion meeting. It really doesn't pertain to this motion directly. Because, no, it isn't, because this was just moving a motion to get this to Department of Commerce. But Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, oh, okay. I also have a lot. I think the amount of time that I've been expressing frustration with the inability to do this land capacity analysis, they probably could have done it in that amount of time. So I'm going to be very clear with this. I move to direct the interim city manager to direct staff to do a land capacity analysis that analyzes the July 14th council direction and the July 23rd Planning Commission recommendation on mandatory inclusionary zoning.
By Councilmember Nelson to direction, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos. Discussion. Councilmember Scheider, then Councilmember Franklin Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. So the next thing I'm going to say is probably going to be out of my naivete. We have had a land capacity analysis, and we are in compliance based on when that was done. And no, that did not include our mandatory inclusionary zoning. Can we just leave it at that?
Wait. Oh.
So if it is unknowable, which is basically what one of the consultant that we've engaged is telling us, that it's unknowable. I mean, I guess another way of looking at it is for all these other cities that have passed mandatory inclusionary zonings, did they get a land capacity analysis that included that? Or did they just decide that this is what we're going to do? So I guess I would like to ask that question. Did these other cities get a land capacity analysis that took into account the mandatory inclusionary zoning? If not, maybe we don't need it.
Thank you, Councilmember Scheider. You did, Councilmember Franklin Johnson. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Nelson.
To answer Councilmember Schneider's reason as to why not just let it go is because for those of us who believe that there is a very good chance that we can be in compliance if all the tools are looked at, which would mean a lower upzoning. So for example, the base zoning or wherever we might be able to kind of ease back, we want to be in compliance, and we want to be in compliance on, speaking for myself, on the affordable units in particular. And so if we're deprived of the ability to analyze how many affordable units we're likely to build from this tool, then we're not really finding out, A, what we're doing at all, and B, we're potentially, again, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but we're potentially creating upzoning for non-affordable projects that will be using our resources and so forth, when maybe we could have said, oh no, we could do it this way, and we're in compliance. And so it's a matter of having the best information, because then we can say, well, we tried, we looked, Econ Northwest or somebody else said, you're only going to get this, or we're so sure no one's going to build on Bainbridge now because of your inclusionary zoning or whatever. And we have the data to make good decisions. But at the moment, what we've been told, and I've asked our people from Commerce twice, basically, are you basically saying that we're in compliance because we created enough multifamily units and affordability doesn't matter? And the answer was yes. So I think what our community wants us to do is do our best job to ensure that if we are creating this additional capacity, it's going to give us affordable housing. And that when we all vote, and some of us are struggling more than others to endorse where we've headed, that we can say, we did everything, and maybe we were even able to adjust back, just like the Planning Commission did when they pulled back and tried to really adjust those boundaries and say, what do we need to do to get there? We don't have that information, and that's the information that I want in order to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In 5 minutes we have left, Councilmember Nelson, Councilmember Land, and then Councilmember Franklin Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I think the deputy mayor really said it a lot. I'm thoroughly convinced that our July 14th direction, which had lower base zoning, base FAR than the interim development regulations that we're looking at, and it had lower lot coverage. But if we add in the mandatory inclusionary zoning, I'm quite sure that if this was actually analyzed, it would get to compliance, right? And it would get to compliance through units that were affordable instead of getting to compliance with market rate units, which will be expensive luxury condos. And again, you have to keep thinking about, we have limited water and we have limited sewer capacity. And I would really prefer that that goes towards affordable units and not market rate units. That's my thinking on it. And it's inconceivable to me that it's impossible to tell what capacity is created by this program. And the email from our consultant just reads as a list of excuses as to why they don't want to do it, and not that it's impossible. And so I am saying we amend the contract, we do what we need to do, and we tell LMN to do it. Because we need the information to make a good decision.
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson, Councilmember Lant, and Councilmember Fratlow Johnson.
Thank you. I kind of feel like we're heading off into a couple of different directions here. I just want to just keep reminding folks that we're no matter what happens, we've got a timeline. We're trying to, and we want the perfect package. And I don't know that in the timelines or extensions that we're working within, we're going to get all the things we want from the people we're demanding them from, when they have told us they're having a hard time reconfiguring their model between units and parcels and acreage. And I love that you want the information, but they're saying they cannot give it to you. And by demanding that the planning department demands them to create something that they're saying is going to have to be very expensive and very time consuming, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Further, if I understand the framework of comprehensive plan updates, we can open this up again next year, correct? Correct. Okay, how about, and maybe this is a question for, I'm just not looking at my council members here. So if we put the,
who are you directing the question to?
Nobody. I'm directing it to myself, looking over at the city attorney. If we add something to the motion that was made previous, perhaps a moratorium, so that some of the upzoning, there's a placeholder on that, maybe that's a consideration. But I just don't think that we are going to get the information in the timeline that it's being asked. I just don't think it's realistic. And we should maybe start thinking creatively about if the upzoning that is not inclusionary does actually start to happen, let's get creative and think about ways that we can stop that, but perhaps not that same pathway through LMN.
Thank you, Councilmember Lant. A minute and a half left. I'm going to add 5.5 minutes. Councilmember Fratlow Johnson, and then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, your hand came up after I identified those folks, Councilmember Matthews, so I was really watching you closely there. Okay. Just want to let you know. All right, Councilmember Fratlow Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel like we've been here before. And, we keep coming back to it. And I think this particular issue has been really one of our biggest problems. We can pass all the motions we want and, say we want this and we want that. If they can't give it to us, there's a couple of things we can do, but we don't have a lot of time to do a lot of them. So I think that we have beat this to death. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilmember Fratlow Johnson. I don't know if that's a technical term, but thank you so much. Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Matthews.
A couple clarifications. First of all, the mandatory inclusionary zoning program that we just moved forward and is the one that we are now embracing is not a lot size approach. It is not unusual or weird. It is a standard program. That is critical. So we are not asking, and I don't want to ask L&M. I'm done with L&M. So yeah, I didn't hear in your motion L&M, but if that was in your motion, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in pushing back on an entity that has pushed back on us so many times, us and the Planning Commission, to try to get, they're in our way. They're in our way between what we're trying to do and getting to commerce and be able to say, look what we did. And if they don't want to work with us, great. Because again, at this point, and just for the public's sake, I just want to explain what, I mean, when we talk about mandatory inclusionary zoning, it means that if you want to build on your property, X number of units, X percentage of Y% of them have to be affordable to a certain whatever amount. Period. This is what people are always wondering, like lay people who don't work in this stuff with us are always wondering, well, why don't you just make affordable housing happen? Why just make everybody put affordable housing in? Well, you actually can't just say to somebody who could right now build 50 units on their property, now we're going to tell you you're going to make 10% of them affordable. But what we can do is if we now told them that they have the potential to have 70 units on their property, we can say, and now 10% of those are going to need to be affordable. That's what mandatory inclusionary zoning is. We didn't invent it. It's not unusual. It makes my hair stand on end to hear L&M say that they can't do that. And again, I just read just a few of these jurisdictions. I think we probably quite admire at least a couple of them who have done these programs, right? So we are the leaders here, right? We represent the community. And just because some entity that we said we've been working with says, well, we can't do it, it's stupid, it's going to take 12 weeks, doesn't mean that if we believe that the right thing to do is to have the analysis done on the work that we've all actually done, then we tell the administration, we want you to go find somebody who can do it. And if they come back and they tell us, we've talked to Econ Northwest and these other people who are the people on the West Coast, and they all agree with L&M, it's impossible, I will shut up. But I don't think that makes any sense. And I think that until I hear from staff, and I don't know if the planning manager can answer this, or if we need the interim director to tell us too, or what. But given the space that we believe we have just purchased by passing this interim ordinance, is there the capacity for something like, even if we hear it's going to take 8 weeks to do the LCA with some other entity, we're still going to stay within our timeline? I haven't gotten enough information to hear that we can't do that. So I'm not going to just give up on this. So I support the motion that what we do is we ask staff to find us somebody who can do the work, which should be work that they can do, and to do it in the timeline that will allow us to complete our comprehensive plan within the space we just purchased.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Topoulos. In the 2 minutes we have left, I just want to suggest that I think the arguments have been spelled out in different ways. I don't think there's any more information that's being thought about in this final bits of conversation. So Councilmember Matthews.
I agree. I withdrew my hand.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Nelson, do you have any constructive to add?
Yeah, I do just want to point out that when we originally did the acre-based version, LMN said that's unusual. Normally it's based on unit count. And that's what the Planning Commission came back with. And so it's not unusual. And in fact, in LMN's email, they say unit count thresholds aren't unusual as a policy, but I don't know whether the regional jurisdictions that use them quantify the effect in their land capacity analysis, and we haven't had the time or scope to find out. Well, they could find out then. And the deputy mayor has laid out quite a number of jurisdictions that have this policy. That is something they can look into. And I'll just finally say, yes, the motion does not mention LMN. It just directs staff to do this. And so if they have to find a different consultant, that's fine. I'm just begging for the information for us to make a good decision, and I'm done. Thank you.
I think your point has been made. Councilmember Franklin Johnson.
I guess, I'm not against the mandatory inclusion. We just voted for that, right? That's not what I'm against. What I'm against is taking the time that we have to try to become more compliant with our comp plan. Why would we spend that time looking for another vendor, first of all, trying to find somebody that can do it in our timeline? What is that going to give us? Yeah.
Councilmember Farnell Johnson, thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, we got 15 seconds.
Okay, I've already said what it gives us. It gives us, it completes the task that the Planning Commission, this isn't just a couple of us. It's what the Planning Commission tried so hard to do. It's what we did when we kind of reached out this way, then we tried that. We've tried on some different hats. And if we have the best information, then we know the hat we choose is the hat we had to choose. So we already have this thing we've just adopted as an interim ordinance. That's apparently compliant. So if this doesn't work out, then we can be compliant with that approach. That's a fallback position. I probably won't vote for it. That makes me sad. But if we find out that this thing we're already going to do, the mandatory inclusionary zoning, is going to produce enough units that we could, for example, readjust the base FAR or adjust the lot size. Now we might start to create something we can all vote for. I just think it's important that Councilmember Van Troy Johnson asked. And I think it's also important for her to know that this is absolutely not a stall tactic or anything. If it can't be done in the time, we can hear that from staff. Intrinsic to me in this motion is, here's the time. Can you see if we can do that in this time and still take the remaining steps to get to the deadline?
Okay, there was not a lot of new information. You're restating the case. We're going into the 45-minute range here right now. I think it's really time to call for the question. I get the last 3 minutes, all I just simply want to say that we can get into analysis paralysis. This happens a lot. And part of the reason why we're in this mess is that we did that as a community. Let's have one more public hearing. Or no, let's have another extension on this discussion. You don't think it's a big deal, but I pushed it out another month. And that's why we're here where we are. It's really good to have public process. It's good to have public information, but sometimes it's used as a delay tactic. And I'm not for that. I'm not suggesting this is what it is, but it has been moved in the past that way. But I'm just saying we have something that will meet the letter of the law. We agree with that, this study, and whatever you feel about is this land use capacity analysis, it's going to meet the deal. And we only have 2 weeks to do it anyway. How could you even possibly get that in case? The staff doesn't have time to investigate. So there's a motion on, we've had a lot of discussion. I'm just calling for the question. I really am, because we can talk, you've debated it back and forth. No new information is being shared that I can see. So I'm calling for the question. So all in favor of the motion being proposed for us? Yeah, please restate the motion.
I move to direct the interim city manager to direct staff to do a land capacity analysis that analyzes the July 14th council direction and the July 23rd planning commission recommendation on mandatory inclusionary zoning.
And there was a second. The motion's been made second. Call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have 4 yeas. Is that 4 yeas? Councilmember Matthews and Councilmember Lant, did you vote? One abstention. Councilmember Matthews?
What was the 23rd of July? Was that the specified, sorry.
Councilmember,
is that the motion? Does it specify the date of the land?
No, that's the date of the planning commission's recommendation on mandatory inclusionary zoning.
Oh, the MIZ. Okay.
Yeah, that's the 10 acre or more, 3.0 max FAR, 85% lot coverage in Ferry and yeah.
Wait.
Well, I
sorry, 10 unit or more. Excuse me.
All right.
Sorry.
Irrelevant. There has been a majority that passed the motion.
Okay.
So I'm just asking Councilmember Matthews for the record, are you voting yes, no, or no?
Yeah, I'll support it. Why not?
Okay, so now it's 5-0. 5 yay, I vote nay, and 1 abstention. All right. Thank you. Good God. Now we're on item 7D. What?
Okay, so thank you, Council, for that guidance. I understand. So I heard 2 motions. The first was to direct staff to work on putting together an interim zoning control, which we will communicate with Commerce about later this week, and then also work to bring back to you on the 25th of On the 25th of August for your consideration. This will be an emergency interim control, which means that it would go into effect right away. It will also entail scheduling a public hearing within the next 60 days for you to review and to hear from the public. You also have passed a motion to direct us to obtain a land capacity analysis based on two sets of information that you considered on the 14th of July, and that the Planning Commission, and to incorporate a Planning Commission recommendation for mandatory inclusionary zoning based on number of units that was recommended on July the 23rd. We will certainly follow up on that. I will note that there's a limited number of staff who are available to work on the comprehensive plan. And so I appreciated your thoughtful consideration of how you want us to spend that time, because we are indeed going to be balancing all of these different things, but we will continue to work on both of those items, report back to you on how long that might take and which consultant we might recommend that you consider having do that work.
Move to item 7D, consider applying for Washington State Department of Commerce concerning housing for infrastructure program, grant application to the Wintergreen Phase 2 project. We have
C first.
Item C, sorry. Jumped ahead. God. Consider applying for the Washington State Department of Commerce connecting housing to infrastructure program grant application for Finch Green process. We have 10 minutes scheduled for this discussion.
Thank you, Council. I'll introduce Management Analyst Laura Shear to give you a very brief overview and ask for your direction.
Good evening, Council. Laura Shear, Management Analyst for the city. What you have before you is a request for consideration to apply for a Connecting Housing to Infrastructure program, commonly known as CHIP grant, for the Finch Green project for $418,000. Given the other work that we're doing, we've checked with Commerce and confirmed that an updated comp plan is not required to apply for CHIP funding. And as a reminder, this is a pass-through grant. The city acts as a conduit for the applicant, and the CHIP application is due September 30th.
Thank you very much, Council. Councilmember Nelson, then Councilmember Fatler Johnson.
Okay, I move to authorize the interim city manager to prepare and execute a memorandum of understanding with Housing Resources Bainbridge to apply for a CHIP grant application in collaboration with HRB for the Finch Green 100% affordable housing project for $418,000.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Nelson, seconded by Councilmember Fatler Johnson to move forward on this grant application. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Councilmember Matthews? Yeah, thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. 6-0, the chair votes aye. Let's move to item number 7D. Consider applying for Washington State Department of Commerce Connecting Housing to Infrastructure Program. I'm not using the acronyms. A grant application for the Wintergreen Phase 2 project.
All right, and Ms. Shear will again provide the same introduction. Thank you.
Yes. What you have before you is a request for consideration for the Connecting Housing to Infrastructure program, also known as the CHIP grant, for the Wintergreen project for approximately $744,000. And again, as a reminder, this is a pass-through grant, and the city's role is to be a conduit for the applicant, and the CHIP application deadline is September 30th.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Fatler Johnson.
I move to authorize the interim city manager to prepare and execute a memorandum of understanding, a MOU, with Central Highland Homes, CHH, and apply for a CHIP grant application in collaboration with CHH for the Wintergreen Phase 2 32% affordable housing project for approximately $774,000.
Second.
Councilmember Fatler Johnson has moved, and since Councilmember Matthews may have a time delay, I'm going to give her the second. And so any further discussion on this motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Council votes 6-0, chair votes aye. It's 7-0. Item 7E, authorize the interim city manager to execute exchange order number 3 for the Eagle Harbor Drive safety improvements and Wyatt Way bicycle pedestrian safety improvements and Eagle Harbor Drive water main replacement project. Said that in one breath. Here we go. Any presentations or discussion on this? Thank you.
I'll make just a very quick introduction before our city engineer is here to provide you with a little more information. The item before you is to authorize the interim city manager to execute a change order related to the Head of the Bay project for both the general fund and the water portion of the project. We are bringing this to you tonight in alignment with our procurement policy, which calls for construction change orders over $500,000 or 10% of the original contract value to come to council. You've already seen these items and authorized the budget. So this is not a request for a budget increase that has been previously authorized by the council. And so we are here today, again, in compliance with our procurement policy. Typically, because you have already authorized the project and the budget, this would be on consent, but we know that this is a project of high community value, so we wanted to have time for the engineer to provide you with some additional information and be here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter Corellis, city engineer. If I may present some more background information in support of the change order request. I understand there was some desire by the council to understand kind of the parsing out of the different costs that were in the 3 change orders, the 2 prior and tonight's change order. And so I'd like to just highlight some of the reasons for the overruns before you in the change order. And I'd first like to highlight the largest amount of the change order totaling approximately about 40% is really it's owing to a delay during the bidding process and during our WSDOT review process, even before the project started construction or was awarded. If you'll recall, we had the Cooper Creek project was authorized for advertisement in January of 2025 and started construction. It was awarded on April 8th in 2025. During that time, we were preparing the project documents to put out to bid for Eagle Harbor Wyatt Way non-motorized pen bike safety project. Starting in February of 2025, we submitted our design package to WSDOT local programs. WSDOT local programs being the agency responsible for administering the disbursement and the management of the federal funds. Remind you, we have 2 PSRC federal funds for this project and also a state TIB Transportation Improvement Board fund for the project. Upon submitting the 100% design package to WSDOT local programs in February, we were not given approval to advertise until April 21st, 2025. And after that, subsequent events, we advertised on May 2nd. We had a bid opening date on May 23rd, and we received 1 bid on that initial bid. And it was rejected by WSDOT local programs on the basis that there was a bidder error concerning the disadvantaged business enterprise goal calculation. So we were then forced to go back out to re-advertisements and turn it around very quickly. We got an exemption from WSDOT. We submitted a public interest finding to reduce the advertisement period to a 2-week timeframe. And we put out the second bid. This time we received more than 1 bid. There was 4 bids, and the lowest bidder was Johansson Construction. And we awarded that bid to them on July 8th. And I'll remind you that the work on Cooper Creek under the other contractor, Red Side, they began work on July 16th with closing the road and beginning the installation of the culvert at Cooper Creek. And we had just awarded the contract to Johansson, 8 days prior. So it was, far off schedule to meet the timeline to line up with when the road was going to be closed, and Johansson could also start their work on the Eagle Harbor Wyatt work. Since February of 2025, we were working to align these bid schedules to be able to get the contractors to start and leverage this closed road because it's only going to reduce costs. We awarded the project on July 8th. We had a notice of award on July 11th. And as contractors do, they took the full time period to return their contract documents. and they submitted all their submittals for review and approval, and they weren't able to start work until October 8th, which is 10 weeks later. So the time period between July 16th and the fish window closure, which ended in September 15th, we were really in the earlier part of the year hoping to utilize that time for Johansson to be on site, working quickly, unimpinged by traffic, and just a faster construction schedule. So I said earlier, these bidder delays, they really cascaded down the project, and they added quite a bit of traffic control flagger hours, because there's a lot of intersections, there's a lot of driveways, and there's 9,000 cars a day going through that road. And what the amount of hours in the original bid was far outspent, because we had to keep the road open and we had to keep the job going. So then the next bulk of the change orders was about 20% of the cost, and these were geared towards design fixes, I'll say. The most important one was the design fix related to the temporary traffic signals that we installed. Our designer had designed a traffic control plan that envisioned building the concrete tilt-up curbs and keeping 2 lanes of traffic open at the same time, shifting traffic one side of the road, building a curb, shifting to the other side, building another curb. But when the contractor got to the sites, they were unable to do that. So we had to rent to the tune of $69,000 the temporary traffic signals and operate those during the nighttime so that cars wouldn't be driving over the wet concrete and the work site. In addition to that, we had striping layout fixes and the pedestrian refuge island at Eagle Harbor and Buckland. We decided not to utilize our consultant. We did in-house redesign of that pedestrian island and all the entire striping layout to reconfigure the lanes to accommodate the larger truck traffic, the larger radii at the curve at the head of the bay. And that was about 20% of the change order costs. 15% of the change order costs didn't impact the budget. They were solely related to preventative maintenance and repairs, and we utilized our R&M money for that. The most important of which was the slurry seal that we installed on the surface of the road, which was about a quarter of the cost of what it would have been to mill and overlay the road. And it's going to extend the life of the road by about 7 years. And also part of the reason why we did that is because we were going to be charged $30,000 to remove the existing striping, and we'd still be left with a kind of a quilted checkerboard road that would look terrible. So we opted to try this novel slurry seal application, which we haven't done yet, but I'm happy with the result. I know the public, it varies on that, but I understand. And in addition to that, we had a 8% charge that was related to the fire department's request to add fire hydrants for safety. And then the other changes were really related to the kind of high contingency construction that you see with utility projects. So we ran into a lot of water and storm conflicts. We had to do a lot of redesigns. We had to do multiple resurveying, restaking. And of course, that all had traffic control added on top of it while they're out there. So the traffic control really snowballed. And then lastly, there was we had PSC on site. They relocated multiple poles, and they scheduled the work. Our contractor scheduled around the work, and the storm hit Kitsap, and it threw the schedule on a tilt. And so then they ended up showing up to relocate the poles, and our contractor had to vacate the premise. So we incurred a delay overhead charge from the contractor. So that in a nutshell is kind of the basis for the 3 change orders that's before you. And I'd just like to mention that there will be one final change order that you'll see before you to close out the project. We estimate that the city should be receiving approximately a $50,000 to $60,000 credit on that final change order. And then the last thing I'd like to say is that when we bid the contract, We had an engineer's estimate of $2.95 million. That excludes the maintenance items that we did for this work, such as the slurry seal. And so subtracting the maintenance items, we're up to $3.174 million with the change orders, which is approximately a $225,000 amount above the engineer's estimate. So, and I'm here for further questions.
Any questions, Councilmember Nelson, and then Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, and then Councilmember Land.
I think my main question, it's probably more to the interim city managers. What if we don't approve this? Because isn't this work that's already done?
It is work that's already done, so there really isn't a way for you not to approve this because you have already authorized the budget. The time where you would have told us, no, really, you got to stop, is when we came to you and asked for the budget amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Hytopoulos, then Councilmember Land.
Well, I just want to draw attention to what I think I heard, that the project is totaled 3.147 million, something like that, three something. I mean, we had a public comment about $17 million, and I think that was, maybe they were even thinking it was even between that and the fish culvert, but there's no way. I thought, there's no way I've missed that somehow. So just to be clear, is that, I don't know if it's social media or something like that, but I want to really call that out, that this was not a $17 million project.
Yeah.
I guess just want to say, and this isn't about this particular issue, and I will of course vote to pay for this, but I do hope we take a look at the project and also not just some of the things that we know about, like the timing and the road closure and all that sort of stuff, but I'm really going to hope that we get some feedback from serious cyclists about the actual product that we've created and so forth. I think it's great I think it is slowing us down. I think that's great as a driver. And I think it's probably good for pedestrians and certain cyclists, but I'm still a little worried about, I'd like to get feedback on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilmember Land, then Councilmember Matthews, then Councilmember Scheider.
Thank you. Mr. Corrales, thank you for standing up there and taking the arrows. I know that you were not in charge of this project. There was different directors and managers who are no longer with us. So I very much appreciate you giving us the story from top to bottom, which I think really answered a lot of my questions. Some of the questions I have are more about describing the work product, like the slurry seal, for example. You know, I hear folks complaining about that rocky cover on top of the road, and it's like it's not finished. But then I Googled slurry seal, and I'm like, what the heck is a slurry seal? And there's a design behind, there's a purpose behind the rockiness that is only going to improve over time. So I guess my only suggestion would be to add a couple of notes on the project page that say exactly what some of these details are. And the project page, I just checked it out yesterday, looks good. I see there's some streetlights going in and some other finishing touches. Will there be a final punch list that you will be doing at the end of this, that, like, when is the project done? When is it done?
They have achieved substantial completion. We have a draft punch list. We will be finalizing the punch list probably at the end of the week. And the project will be done. Hard to say, but it'll be 99% done by the end of the week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And one last question. This is the bundling projects versus independent projects. You can't, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not looking backwards, I could tell you the way everything should have been done. But putting a request for bid together based on a bundled project going forward, perhaps something, is it possible to even put an RFP out that is for both a bundled and for independent projects so that you can carve them out as needed?
Most certainly, I think you would end up paying quite a bit more in the design phase, but because they would have to generate kind of two scenarios, but it's certainly possible. And I think that, the bundled approach, I think when it comes to utilities, maybe some of the lessons learned is that I think we need to spend a lot more time doing that pre-investigation, physical potholing, ground penetrating radar to really identify where those water lines are, because that was one of the big problems that we had. We have the old maps and were not always where they were shown on the maps.
Thank you, Councilmember Lang.
Thank you.
Councilmember Councilmember Matthews and Councilmember Scheider, then Councilmember Brownlee Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. And thank you so much for your presentation and for taking all these questions. And because I know you were not the one, Interim Director Corellis. So I'm very grateful you're here tonight. I just want to say, we all know that it has been challenging for the community. Obviously painful, or not painful, but not the happiest experiences for us to read so many negative comments and realize some of the impacts to the community. I think one thing that might help is just to make a footnote at the end of our posts that we put out about it, like it's not done. Because we do get a lot of questions, or, what are the little square orange things that are in the road? What did they leave that for? Or what is the paint so crooked for? And so I think just maybe saying, it's not complete. Next step is, so that folks can see that. And then on a positive note, I drive that way every day because I live in Linwood Center. And on the weekends, you see so many folks using it. There are children biking, there are tourists biking. I know the cycling shop downtown sends folks on that route. And folks are using it. So I think, as Deputy Mayor said, it would be good to hear from cyclists some feedback, but just with my untrained eye, I see it being used quite a bit. So that's beneficial. One thing that I wish we had been able to remedy a little bit, and I tried, was some of the impacts that Greenlight Garage had. And I had the former city manager look into if there were ways to compensate them for some of their loss in business. And unfortunately, there are not, but just so I want to keep that in mind. And I do look forward to the postmortem of the project, but it is good to see it's being used. And I think it's coming to completion. And so I thank the community for their patience.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews, Councilmember Scheider, and then Councilmember Brownlee Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I loved the play-by-play. I think it's really important for us to hear it. I think it's really important for the community to hear it. And I'm wondering if it could be, this isn't for you necessarily, but for there to just be an addition to the project page that says, look here at this time on this link for a play-by-play. So it's just good for us to hear why things happen the way they do. And, sometimes bad things happen because it was luck of the draw, right? And other times bad things happen because there was poor planning, and we need to differentiate between those as well. I'm not good at math in my head, but I'm just thinking that it was 278,000 was the bulk, was the total. Is that right? Or you could tell me.
For change order
For
3,
change orders, yeah.
the total change orders 1, 2, and 3, I think, was about 718,000.
Okay. All right. So then what percent, 718, I'm definitely not going to do that math in my head, but so what percentage of that, of the total of the total project cost? That would be another sort of data point that we could add to the.
I think that's on the order of 28% of the project cost. Yeah.
Gotcha. I think that's the end of, I drove a small truck, a borrowed truck with a whole bunch of stuff to go to the dump. I drove down that just this past weekend, and I was forced to go slow, and I loved that. Anyway, I think that it's going to be an amazing bit of infrastructure. Yes, I would love to get feedback from cyclists on how it goes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brownlee Johnson, Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you for telling us the play-by-play. I guess it sounded like to me like a perfect storm, like anything that could have went wrong. And I heard you say that there's a percentage of a credit or something coming back to us. What was that again?
Yeah, so with the final change order that we're going to be bringing to council, we anticipate $50,000 to $60,000 of credit to be returned back to the city.
Okay,
Most likely to the tax fund, tax supported fund.
okay. And when this is done, what will we talk about?
The next great thing.
What's the next big headache coming for us, I guess is.
I suppose the next big thing that we'll be bringing to council for consideration and input is the Buckland Hill non-motorized project. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Franklin Johnson. Councilmember Nelson.
First, thank you for the play-by-play, and it is appreciated. And I think while I'm upset with it being so over, I do take comfort that it's not that much over the engineering estimate, which is because obviously the bid came in below that, so that's helpful to know. I'm only going to vote for this because I believe we should pay people for work that's done, not because I'm excited about the overage. But with that said, there's something in the packet that says E.H. Cooper Creek projects. And I'm wondering if you can add some explanation to this, because it says prior years total funding was $8.5 million. This year, $212,000. Then it has subsequent years, another $5.2 million for a total of $13.9 million. And I'm hoping you could kind of connect the dots as to how this relates to the Eagle Harbor Drive project. Is this the same thing?
Maybe I can take that one.
Yeah.
So this is a consolidated report and includes, if you're referring to the subsequent years, that $5.2 million, which obviously is a large percentage of the 13.9, is future funding, which has not yet come to council, that would be for the Buckland Hill project. So I expect that there will be significant community and council conversation about exactly what that project looks like and when we do it. But it was incorporated into this page because it's kind of in the same area. But for what the city engineer is describing and for the conversations that we're having, I would say look at the prior years and 2026 column, which then if you add those two together, you get about $8.7 million, which is a lot of money, and represents the consolidated spending for the road project, the water main project there, and the culvert or that new bridge.
Perfect. Thank you. So $8.7 million, not $17 million. Let's put that in the record, $8.7 million. For both projects.
For all three, the water, road, and the culvert project.
Okay, so I don't want to beat up on you. Thank you for your work. We'll call it good there, okay?
Thank you, Councilmember Nelson. Is there further discussion? I'd like to make some fun. Yeah, we're 22 minutes into a 10-minute deal. So first of all, thanks for that. Council members Lant and Nelson weren't here last year when this happened, and it was frustrating. You did a good bid, and there was that problem with the bid, had to go out again. So everything is a delta pusher. That's a delay. And we missed the primary time for construction because as you heard at TikTok, it was way beyond our control. And those are just multipliers that we have no control over, and you did the best you could. And then you have new discoveries as you're in the ground. As you mentioned, some of the utilities weren't there as previously determined by maps. So you have to work around that. You have the utility itself that said they're going to move their poles, but there was a power outage for those days that they were too busy. And of course, then they had to come when they were available, but it wasn't planned. So there's another 3 or 4 days where our workers aren't working because PSC has to do their work. I mean, these are all really important things for people to remember, that you do the best planning you can and stuff happens. As John Lennon said, life is what happens when you're making other plans. And I just also want to go for another, a little bit higher view, if I may, with council. Green Light Garage will remind you how many times they've been flooded out. When that little culvert blocked, it used to flood over Eagle Harbor Drive. Got picked. I mean, remember those times? I remember going through in there and splashing away. And we as an environmental community, how is it a good idea that you have the splashback from an auto facility right on the edge of our harbor? What could possibly go wrong? This was a huge environmental issue. And finally, I just want to add, we do this land acknowledgement, of which I really am enjoying. But the real question is, what can we do to actually, other than say we acknowledge this land, what is something that we can actually do that has impact for the tribe? And Cooper Creek ran for thousands of years, 20,000 years, 30,000, who knows, before we immigrants came and blocked it up. And we blocked it. And I don't know when that road was first built, but it was at least 100 years ago, or maybe more, right? I'm just a speculation. And I realized, and it was an inconvenience and a hassle to have the road blocked. We heard that continuously, but I do have to say that, those Squamish tribes been waiting like a century to have their creek back, and 4 months was really not that much of an inconvenience, at least in my view. And that's something that we did positively. Our words actually had meaning. This creek is now coming back to its historical use, and I hope the salmonoids come back, and that'll be very glorious. So in all, it was a good project, even with all the hassles that happened, in my opinion. So, Councilmember Fowler Johnson.
I move to authorize the interim city manager to execute change order number 3 in the amount of $474,867.46 for the Eagle Harbor Drive safety improvements at Wyatt Way Bicycle Pedestrian and Safety Improvements and Eagle Harbor Drive Water Main Replacement Project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fowler Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Lant, to finally get this thing finished. Any further discussion on this motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Council votes 6-0, the chair votes aye, it's 7-0. Finally, last item on communications, request from council members Lant, Matthews, and Fentwell Johnson, a discussion of residential sport court standards to a future council agenda. Let's just say we're going to move it to a future council agenda. We don't get into the points of this. Let's talk about it then. So, good, everyone? So a motion, anyone to move this forward to a council? Anyone?
I make a motion that we move this item to a future agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you very much. And there's not going to be any discussion because I said there's not. Okay, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
6-0, the chair votes aye. Council announcements. Anything? I would just have to say it's really unfortunate that we couldn't have our national night out because of the wildfires. But I'm glad our city errs on the responsible path to, for those who have issues with that. Right. So thank you. No other, Councilmember Land, sorry.
I'll just, short and sweet. Councilmember Fentroy Johnson and I manned the farmer's market booth on Saturday. How quickly you forget. It was just like that. Anyway, it was great. Saw lots of people, answered lots of questions, pointed a lot of people to the bathroom. It's good. I did want to say that just for FYI, that the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission is hosting a public workshop focusing on emerging large electric loads, data centers, tomorrow at 9 a.m. over Zoom. The discussion is going to be about power rates, cost sharing, energy flexibility, and customer protections. I think it's something that we've received some emails about from constituents about data centers. And so if anybody can make it, I'm going to be attending the meeting via Zoom. And it's on the UTC website, which I have thrown out on my website. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Land. Councilmember Matthews.
Thanks, Mayor. Just really quick, I just wanted to congratulate Councilmember Lant and one of our community members, Chastity Malatesta, for being awarded the 2026 Women Achievement Awards by the Kitsap County YWCA. Thought that was
How
pretty
come you
cool.
didn't mention that, Councilmember Lant? And I know it's be humble, but seriously, come on. And any further comments, Councilmember Matthews?
No, that's all I have. I thought
Thanks for bringing that to our attention, and well deserved with your advocacy for supporting the YWCA Women's Center. That was quite good leadership. Councilmember Scheider.
Yes, thank you. Real quick. So Hannah Betcher, our sustainability coordinator, has been running these community bike rides. And so there's one coming up next Thursday, the 20th. This one is in the afternoon. Most of them have been in the morning. And so this one is from 4 o'clock to, I think they've got it running until 6. But anyway, it's a community ride to 11 Winery. And it kind of goes a circuitous path, and then you get to do what you do at wineries.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. One, the Public Art Committee met last week, and want to remind everyone about the something new sculptures that are all over, including the one right in front of our city hall. This is like metal lace. It's beautiful right now with the light through it. Quite wonderful. And I got to have a quick discussion when we're talking about the hiring of our new city manager. I mentioned that had it gone the other way, we would have had a man of color and a woman, and people would have probably criticized us for being, too woke, being, too DEI. And I commented that that wasn't the lens, it was competence. But what I meant was that, of course, we did that. Of course, that was part of our lens. And we were glad that they were two of our candidates. And so that's something that I was really proud when we went through that process, that we just happened to have two fantastic folks that would have been, and I would think any one of those four would have been a great city manager. Just want to make sure that was a very clear comment. I didn't mean anything other than that. So any further comments? Without that, we're adjourned.